Meet Hyun. He pitched a flawless vault heist to dethrone the local underworld boss. Spoiler alert, the whole master plan was literally just bait to backstab his buddy. D-Day finally arrives. Our naive main character strolls right into the rendezvous point, expecting a casual villain takedown with Hyun. Surprise, he opens the door to a blatantly obvious ambush orchestrated by his so-called friend. The big bad boss generously offers him a classic ultimatum: become an unpaid intern for 20 years or instantly meet the Grim Reaper. Our boy just smirks, whips out a dagger, and dares them to bring it on. The goons burst into obnoxious laughter, but the boomer boss clutches his pearls at the sheer audacity. He immediately barks at his lackeys to end him. Unfazed, he unsheathes his blade. He triggers a system skill, pushing the screaming steel way past its absolute maximum limits. Bam! Total blackout and burst eardrums for everyone. He yeets the shattered sword, flashes a ridiculous coat packed with daggers, and the slaughter officially kicks off. He shreds through the terrified mob like an absolute blender. Fodder keeps rushing in, but he flawlessly sweeps the floor without taking a single speck of damage. The final grunt literally calls him a demon before face-planting. Lights up, he is the sole survivor standing in the carnage. Outside, the supposedly terrifying boss is pathetically worming his way across the dirt. The mafia head glares in pure horror, violently sweating over how one edgy teenager casually solo-wiped 20 armed mobsters. Enter Heyman. Right now, this absolute unit casually hosts 3 legendary masterminds inside his head. But trust me, he definitely did not start out this overpowered. Flashback. Ominous apocalyptic towers randomly spawned across the globe, triggering a massive global meltdown that almost deleted humanity from existence. Humanity found one obsession: climb that stupid tower. Hitting the penthouse meant infinite money and god-tier status. The sweatiest tryhards literally ascended into cosmic constellations. 36 brutal years later, our main character is totally surrounded by his completely wiped-out raid party. He drops to his knees, fully expecting a massive boss monster to chomp him. But as the beast lunges, he suddenly refuses to log out without throwing hands. He leaps at the monstrosity with his blade. Flashbang. The screen goes totally white, and he abruptly respawns in some bizarre unknown dimension. He is utterly bewildered. Why? Because he is just awkwardly staring at 2 creepy silhouettes, completely lacking any facial features. They aggressively splash magic drops into his face. Plot twist. His vision focuses, revealing a support group of dead alternate timeline Hammonds who also failed the tower climb. Welcome to his miserable existence. He finally realizes his personal cheat code is a cursed infinite respawn glitch. The horrific catch: his memory gets forcefully formatted every single reset. Apparently, only VIP constellations get to keep their precious save files intact, which hilariously explains why every single past version of him spectacularly failed to beat this rigged system. Mid-lore dump, the system violently yanks him into a fresh regression. He wakes up with absolute amnesia again. And guess who immediately photobombs his new life? Freaking Hyun, the very snake destined to backstab him later. And our clueless hero suspects absolutely nothing. Just another mundane grind session. The duo hunts down a rogue craftsman, who is basically a glorified magical blacksmith with severe anger issues. The arrest goes hilariously wrong. The mad crafter torches Heyman's left hand and violently brands a magic circuit using a counterfeit coin. Usually this grants an absolutely garbage-tier skill. True to his chronically pathetic luck, the system rolls an utterly worthless ability for him. Fueled by hidden memories, his regression cheat instantly mutates it into a godly double S rank. Hours later, he groggily wakes up in a crusty tent. He squints at his newly acquired system window, totally convinced he rolled pure garbage. Little does this fool know, this exact skill will flawlessly decrypt his lost past lives, giving him the very first legitimate cheat code to obliterate the tower. He instantly rage quits his mobster job and embraces the solo leveling lifestyle. He starts grinding ridiculous dungeon mobs, spamming his new broken skill to farm those sweet stats. The best part, every single time he spams the ability, his mental sync rate with his dead past selves literally skyrockets. He breezes past 52% sync, boom. The system officially chimes as he maxes out at 100%. Casually strolling through the 5th floor, a random thug tries to jump him. This absolute meathead has zero clue that Haman has secretly evolved into a raid boss. The thug wildly swings a heavy punch, but our main character casually parries it with insulting ease. Enraged by the disrespect, the brute recklessly swings his massive axe, Yawn. Heyman elegantly slips past and surgically buries his dagger, one-shotting the fool. Cue the existential crisis. He completely panics, realizing he just scored his first actual player kill. That night, he crashes hard, needing beauty sleep before tomorrow's massive tower grind. Morning drops, he shakes off the trauma, scoops up his loot, and stubbornly marches right back into the danger zone. His gross new daily routine, farming giant dungeon spiders and awkwardly napping inside creepy wasp cocoons. At max sync, the system drops 4 epic reward choices. He stubbornly picks weapons. His ghostly past-life audience collectively facepalms, screaming at his incredibly basic gamer choice. Standing over a dead boss spider, he smugly activates his ridiculously overpowered regressor collection skill. Jackpot. He instantly extracts a glowing core and an absurdly rare relic valued at 400 million. He struts out of that cave, radiating massive billionaire energy. Fast forward a bit. He triumphantly swaggers into the central hub city, the ultimate gateway to the higher floors. While window shopping, he literally bumps into Heon after months of ghosting each other. After some fake pleasantries, the snake pitches an insane heist against the local overlord. Anticipating the betrayal, he hits up the night market and literally buys out every single throwing dagger. Checkmate. The ambush popped off. Hamon went full goblin mode, wiping out the entire syndicate and their powerful boss. But the moment the dust settled, his adrenaline crashed hard, paralyzing his body as he nearly collapsed. Looking up, he saw the atheistic paladins. They were literally the elite muscle guarding the entire tower. The leading woman casually strolled up, praising our main character for pulling off an insanely epic solo massacre. Her squad quickly swept the Elder's office to assess the absolute chaos left behind. Suspicious of his crazy power, she used an overwhelming suppression skill. Haman was pinned down like a helpless bug. The imposing girl revealed herself as the legendary platinum monarch, Yeon So-hwan. Hamon's jaw dropped. An actual monarch was doing grunt work, personally investigating sketchy counterfeit money rings. This mess stressed her out, but Haman accidentally did all her heavy lifting. Honestly, Yeon was planning to assassinate that corrupt elder anyway. A target that dangerous required absolute perfection. The elder was a slippery snake, but thanks to Haman's rampage, they effortlessly confiscated all the dirty black market gold. The monarch smirked, admitting his insane rampage actually deserved serious applause. However, playing vigilante was strictly illegal. Now, our main character was staring down two very extreme options. Option 1, get executed as a mass murderer. Option 2, pretend he was her exclusive personal hunter on official orders. Hamon wasn't an idiot. Option 2 was clearly the only way to keep his head. But surviving meant signing a devil's contract. She could totally weaponize his life and blackmail him forever. Desperate, Hamon prayed to the constellations. The Martial King immediately smashed that like button, fully endorsing this crazy deal. Hamon sighed, ready to boldly reject her, until she casually dropped that her royal hunters get paid an absolute fortune, plus a luxury penthouse inside the royal castle and insane VIP shopping discounts everywhere. Hamon sold out instantly. The monarch burst into laughter, amused by how quickly his morals crumbled for cash. Who could reject those perks? Meanwhile, the mage constellation raged, realizing Yeon was totally bluffing about executing him. The alchemist was totally baffled. Anyone would reject such an overpowered sugar mommy deal. Though honestly, knowing the nightmare of working under terrifying bosses, refusing made absolute sense too. But Yeon saved his life. The grumpy mage argued that this cunning monarch only cared about her own ultimate profit. The chat room knew exactly what fresh hell awaited him, but clueless, Haman just smiled. Martial King asked what crazy reason made them accept this ridiculous offer before. The mage seethed with anger. In his timeline, the alchemist awakened a cheat skill and barely escaped her clutches. Forcefully detoxing his own mana circuits back then resulted in a completely botched, horrifying bodily mutation. Thankfully, the mage pulled a lucky skill card, securing his epic revenge without ever trusting that manipulative royal. The Martial King sighed, claiming his gacha luck was absolute trash, though the mage aggressively disagreed with him. In previous lives, any Hamon failing to impress this terrifying monarch was instantly tossed away like literal garbage. He was a hardcore pragmatist who treated human lives like cheap items. Even the proud king admitted that. He was a solid ally, definitely not a friend. Her icy, calculating vibe had sparked massive, dramatic fights before. Yet despite all her giant red flags, this very monarch once sacrificed herself for him. This day, he had absolutely zero idea why that icy queen threw herself into danger just for him. He could never forget the tragic sight of her lonely back. That emotional memory was why he smashed like. By becoming her lackey, our boy finally broke his 1-month death curse. The constellations threw a chaotic celebration party. Meanwhile, an exhausted Haman groggily woke up, staring at a ridiculously luxurious VIP ceiling. He remembered sipping suspicious tea yesterday and instantly passing out. This entire week felt like a chaotic fever dream. Suddenly, he realized his battered body was completely healed with magic while he was snoring. Maybe the monarch wasn't a cold-blooded psycho. A mysterious woman nearby warned him to stay in bed and recover. Hamon flinched. How long had she been watching him sleep? She coldly introduced herself as the Paladin Commander Executioner doll. Hamon panicked. That terrifying title belonged to the infamous bloodthirsty slayer of dark cultists. This ex-executioner led the vigilantes, acting as Yeon's absolute most dangerous and loyal attack dog. Executioner Doll was legendary for one thing, turning unfortunate criminals into absolute mincemeat without mercy. Mon's jaw basically dropped. Seeing the infamous executioner doll up close was wild, but watching this scary figure actually save 3 kids, that hit him right in the feels. Flustered, she brushed it off as basic human decency. But to Hamon, she was an absolute legend, the heroic hunter standing closest to the godly constellations. Since active constellations practically never touched grass outside the tower, this executioner doll was basically a walking demigod. Remember when that catastrophic omen beast crashed floor 28, total nightmare fuel? She soloed that terrifying boss for 3 straight days, earning a literal star. Sweatingly debunking the myth, she claimed it only took 1 day. But Hamon fanboyed hard, asking if she really smashed a giant spider leg barehanded and stopped a crazy cultist's water poisoning plot. The relentless shower of praises turned the fearsome warrior into a blushing mess. Hamon doubled down, declaring her the people's ultimate heroine. Amidst all those arrogant constellations, she was the only one actually protecting the little guys. She humbly deflected the hero worship, quickly pointing out how our main character completely wiped out a mob of lackeys entirely solo. Hamon awkwardly agreed, though his messy survival was hardly epic. That is when it clicked for her. This crazy rookie literally had 0 backup. Wait a minute. Hamon suddenly realized this entire fan meet moment was just a sneaky interrogation tactic. He had completely seen right through his classic strategy of using friendly chatter to drop enemy defenses. That adorable blushing face. It was a complete tactical trap designed to lower his guard, played like a fiddle. Sweating bullets, Hamon admitted he flew solo. He kept his guard up simply because standing before his ultimate idol was terrifyingly nerve-wracking. Since ruler hunters held VIP legal immunity, he nervously asked why he was under such heavy surveillance. Immunity or not, basic laws still applied. Plus, those annoying paladins operated as a completely independent spy network outside the tower's government control. The doll drilled him, asking if he sneaked into the Soul Tower's restricted zones or its creepy basement. Hamon denied everything, claiming he only received a level 4 circuit transplant recently. Her eyes narrowed sharply. How did a fresh rookie slaughter 10 enemies without a single backup? Panicking, our main character wildly stammered that some mysterious constellations had secretly blessed him. She instantly demanded their exact divine titles. Mon gulped, cold sweat dripping down his neck. Her deadly serious aura screamed that something was terribly wrong. Should he actually leak his sponsor's embarrassing usernames? Just then a system ping popped up. The alchemist smashed the like button, prompting Hamon to frantically claim his sponsor was dynamite. Hey, some gods really did climb the celestial ranks through sheer dumb luck. The doll nodded, comparing him to the Prophet constellation. As the newest living god on the block, the Prophet leveled up at a ridiculously broken speed. However, if a shadow possessed him or he became a filthy parasite, his VIP hunter status would not stop an instant execution. Bottom line, Hamon had to prove his humanity. When infected by a parasite, a human's mana circuit completely vanishes. You could not test it with cheap iron circuits either. Those picky parasites ignored trash-tier energy, craving only pure golden mana to feed on. There was only one brutal way to uncover the truth. She ordered him to follow her immediately. Next, stop the ruler's interrogation room. Upon arriving, the chilling echoes of prisoners practically begging for death filled the dark halls. One enraged prisoner screamed bloody murder at the monarch. In a flash, she hoisted the screaming man up by his throat. His name was Anwu Yun, pure scum, guilty of murder and brutal abuse. Quoting the law, she coldly declared she would collect his life's penalty right there. Aura flared. She activated her skill, dropping him lifelessly to the floor in a split second, sarcastically wishing him a more honorable next life. The remaining trash panicked, screaming about human rights. Next up was Kim Lee Bin, a twisted pyromaniac and cold-blooded murderer. Yun snatched him like a rag doll. Whispering that sins cannot be outrun, she effortlessly snuffed out his miserable life. Finally, the last victim of her judgment. Lee Dogan arrested for bloody theft and murder. After the triple execution, the monarch chuckled playfully about exposing Hamon to such gore. But Hamon wasn't an idiot. This psychological warfare was completely intentional. The doll requested permission to use the courtyard arena. Yun smirked, questioning if it was for a special interrogation. The monarch wondered if she planned to test his combat specs personally. Facing her there was absolutely no way Hamon could fake his insane solo kill strength. Feeling that was totally overkill, Yun suggested throwing him into a live bounty hunt instead to prove his worth. With a dramatic snap of her fingers, guards dragged in a hostage. It was Hun. The monarch revealed he was an elder's dirty lackey caught snooping at the scene. Xian was completely baffled. Why drag this guy right in front of the terrifying platinum monarch? Suddenly, the system interface exploded. Constellations spammed the like button like crazy when she grabbed his hand. The urgent system ping screamed that absolute chaos was incoming. Hamon ripped his hand away from Yun's terrifying grip instantly. Her aura spiked chillingly, warning everyone to freeze unless they wanted a painful death. Amon blinked in pure confusion. Wait, that deadly threat was not even aimed at him. She glared upwards, directly threatening the godly constellations backing him. Haman swallowed hard, realizing this crazy monarch knew way more of his secrets than she let on. Yoon leaned in closer. She whispered that this little favor was just to avoid executing him later. Grabbing his hand again, Haman stood utterly clueless, yet he felt the heavy psychological warfare sparking between the greedy constellations and the terrifying platinum monarch. With her mysterious task complete, Yoon smiled. She told him to ignore the messy consequences, provided he actually proved his worth to her right now. Haman checked his circuit. The rusty iron transformed into shining platinum, instantly washing the agonizing pain away. Yoon coldly listed Hoon's rap sheet: trafficking, violence, and murder, plus attacking a ruler's hunter on a secret mission. That was a massive, unforgivable crime. Hoon's jaw dropped, absolutely shocked that Haman was suddenly working for the boss. Of course, claiming Haman was on a top-secret monarch mission was just a total lie to justify his upcoming revenge. Rulers usually handled executions themselves, but Yoon wanted a live show. Asking if Haman had the guts, she dramatically tossed a single sword between the two former friends. With only one blade available, she yelled for the death match to begin. Hoon spat a fake apology and desperately lunged for the weapon. Snatching the steel, that backstabber charged at Haman without a single second of hesitation. Haman smoothly dodged the wild swings. Hoon yelled that he would cry at his grave every day. Haman just sighed, calling his ex-friend a complete idiot. The monarch never actually promised to forgive Hoon for winning. Dodging again, Haman furiously tried to deduce what secret Yoon was trying to uncover. Was she testing the combat skills he used to slaughter the elder? Suddenly it clicked. Haman realized her piercing gaze was locked right onto his hand. It was his mana circuit. The sneaky monarch was totally waiting for his reminiscent skill. Refusing to show his hand, he casually dodged the relentless strikes. Finally, Haman snatched Hoon's wrist, completely shutting down the pathetic assault. He stared Hoon down, asking if the Platinum Monarch would ever let a criminal walk free. Haman secretly planned to fake a mistake, letting him bolt for the exit. Hoon looked confused as the main character subtly pushed their struggle right toward the door. Whispering quickly, Haman told him to thrust at his chest. He would dodge, giving Hoon the perfect opening to run away. Hoon whispered his thanks and kicked Haman back. The protagonist stumbled on purpose, leaving the escape route wide open. But instead of running like a coward, Hoon raised the blade to strike again. Haman offered one final chance, but the traitor chose death. Fine then. The protagonist decided to finish this mess himself. He thanked Hoon for remaining a garbage friend until the bitter end. Now he could kill him guilt-free. Hoon desperately begged him to wait, but Haman was done listening and cleanly snapped his neck. Slow clapping, Yoon praised the magnificent execution. She smugly noted that she saw his cute little attempt to let the traitor escape. Even after the ultimate betrayal, Haman felt slightly awful about killing an old friend. Still, the monarch grinned, acknowledging how ruthlessly he took the shot. When forced, Haman coldly replied that sparing a snake like him just felt wrong. Yoon laughed, admitting she absolutely loved that dark mindset. It was a brutally simple logic, but it worked flawlessly. Yoon admitted she hated indecisive fools who ruined everything with their endless hesitation. A true hunter needed absolute resolve and lightning-fast action. That killer instinct was exactly why he would become a legendary hunter. The executioner doll chimed in, demanding strict adherence to legal procedures. To keep this little hero breathing, the monarch had resorted to seriously humiliating measures. Tossing him his payment, she congratulated Haman on his very first successful hunt. He was now officially the personal hunter of a supreme ruler. He had endured absolute humiliation just for a single gold coin earlier. Yet harvesting Hoon's worthless life just earned him a shiny platinum one. Yoon gently patted Haman's head. She smirked, saying his hidden skills didn't matter anymore. As her newly minted hunter, he was more than qualified. Haman froze. He had never felt such a surprisingly gentle touch. Meanwhile, inside his head, his past life personas were screaming in utter confusion. The alchemist popped up, wildly guessing if this terrifying woman had actually fallen in love with him. The mage was absolutely furious. More than half of their past life deaths were Yoon's fault. Heck, even the mighty martial king died on her botched expedition. The alchemist agreed vigorously, remembering how she lured him into a hellish war zone and worked him non-stop. That evil monarch almost never handed out sweet encouragement. Interrupting the rant, the martial king grunted, asking if fixing the circuit shielding wasn't slightly more urgent. They fully expected Yoon to shield his circuits now. After all, rookies constantly died from gruesome poisoning or spontaneous combustion without proper mana shielding. The king glared at the mage. Why did he force Yoon to stop her magic if nothing was actually going wrong this time? The mage nervously explained the truth. During that first touch, she wasn't shielding him at all. She was trying to hack his mind. While her second touch was real shielding, the mage knew they couldn't just hide. That terrifying monarch clearly sensed the multiple souls living in his head. She was literally trying to peek into their inner mental world. Thankfully, the brilliant mage had scrambled the signal to minimize their exposure. The martial king gasped. They were dangerously close to being exposed. That was exactly why the mage panicked and gave the executioner doll the fake name Dynamite. Trembling in fear, the alchemist started sweating. He was terrified, because he was clearly the weakest soul stuck inside this mental chat room. The mage mercilessly agreed, calling the alchemist the ultimate loser of the Hamon collective, and laughed right in his ghostly face. Cut to later, Yun received a bizarre report about a mysterious constellation named Dynamite protecting Haman. Now she was dangerously obsessed with uncovering Dynamite's true identity, but first she needed the absolute truth about his dying hand. Non-gold circuits were basically a death sentence. He had survived so far, but frying his own flesh during every single battle wasn't a sustainable strategy. Hamon nodded, painfully aware of his crumbling internal system. So Yun casually revealed she had placed a protective seal over his circuit, completely neutralizing the lethal poison. This magical hack would severely drop his temperature and extend his stamina. The burning recoil remained. That was the ultimate price of power. However, his combat time limit had just been magically doubled. Hamon bowed his head. She had repeatedly snatched him from death's grip. Awe swelled in his chest as he formally thanked his absolute savior. Yet his inner alarms blared. Nobody gives away free buffs. The sovereign simply smiled, requesting to witness his unique ability without enforcing absolute obedience. Based on his spectacular growth, she offered to dramatically upgrade his spiritual circuits again, assuming his mysterious sponsor permitted it, of course. Naturally, the conversation instantly shifted toward that very cosmic backer, the enigmatic entity known as Dynamite. Demanding every single detail, she waited as our hero carefully spilled his secrets. When she pressed him for more hidden lore, Hamon honestly confessed his ignorance. Her sharp gaze narrowed at his incredibly plot-hole-filled backstory. Yun cynically questioned if this divine being was actually dropping golden opportunities for pure charity. Following a heavy silence, she brought up the newly locked tower, where countless desperate players were currently stranded on level 1. The ruler coldly stated this lockdown was a vital quarantine against a catastrophic internal glitch. Recently, completely unregistered cosmic entities had manifested, seemingly bypassing the traditional grind of collecting achievements and glory. Normally, mortals ascended to godhood by painstakingly linking 5 ultimate stars. Historically, that was the absolute only path to celestial power. So the sudden spawn of these max-level beings shattered every known law of the system. When Hamon desperately asked for their titles, she admitted they remained totally anonymous. Suspicion hung heavily in the air. Could one of these rule-breakers actually be Dynamite? Honestly, our protagonist was just as hopelessly confused. Cold sweat dripped down his back as he questioned his choices. Had confessing about Dynamite just painted a massive target on his own back? The dungeon's entire ecosystem had mutated, sparking Yun's urgent investigation. Terrifying high-tier parasites were suddenly slaughtering rookies down in the beginner zones. Absolute chaos erupted, turning the ascension elevators into literal death traps. Hence the total lockdown. Haman had wrongly blamed the shiny new currency update, but this terrifying glitch made way more sense. The sovereign remained clueless about the cause, merely praying this nightmare wouldn't completely destroy their sanctuary. Her elite scout had just returned from surviving the infected zones, and this veteran would become Haman's new brutal instructor. Hamon blinked in shock. The ruler actually commanded a whole shadow legion of hunters, though only a handful were currently active. Enter Kong Hajin. Since they shared the exact same age, Yun optimistically assumed a beautiful blood-forged friendship would instantly blossom. She ordered Hajin to mercilessly train the newbie. Hamon was locked into a 2-year mandatory guild contract to master the deadly arts. Reality hit him hard. He was diving into fatal dungeon raids before hitting legal adulthood. He was officially the industry's youngest rookie. Therefore, acting like polite school kids felt completely pointless here. Still, he swallowed his pride and offered a friendly handshake. Hajin completely ghosted the gesture, instantly sparking a blazing fire of irritation. The hostility was incredibly obvious. Yun giggled, playfully dismissing the boy's attitude as shyness. Yeah, right, Haman thought. This jerk was just fiercely antisocial. Delegating the orientation, the monarch bluntly declared Haman was tragically pathetic. He flinched at the insult, but she ruthlessly doubled down on his weakness. He needed to shatter his limits and survive this hellish training, or risk becoming entirely useless to her grand master plan. Marching down the hallway, Hamon couldn't resist, dropping some snark. He loudly wondered if every royal hunter lacked basic human manners. Hajin instantly whipped around, unleashing a soul-freezing death glare. Sparks flew in their silent standoff, leaving our protagonist sweating over his bold trash talk. Ignoring the bait entirely, the seasoned veteran simply pointed a finger toward the rookie's brand new living quarters. Throwing the door open, Hamon's jaw hit the floor. This wasn't a dungeon cell. It was absolute luxury, featuring a bone-warming hearth and ridiculously plush bedding. But Hajin quickly ruined the vibe, casually flexing the ultimate status symbol implanted directly inside his left eye. A brutal reality check designed to crush any rookie arrogance. He wasn't special. Previous elites had earned these exact same legendary artifacts. Installing magical currency straight into your eyeball was incredibly hardcore. Economically speaking, a single platinum piece ruthlessly eclipsed 10 solid gold coins. It wasn't merely about the metallic weight or physical purity, even though it flawlessly mirrored standard currency dimensions. While players farmed basic gold inside the treacherous tower, platinum was utterly unfarmable. Only the absolute monarch could forge it. This made it an insanely rare reward, meant strictly for legendary achievements. Beyond massive street cred, it served as a god-tier magical catalyst. Alchemists would literally kill for a tiny fraction of its power. Suddenly, the outrageous market value made perfect, terrifying sense. If platinum symbolized the absolute monarch, wannabes were bound to try and steal her royal swagger. Hajin discovered the terrifying truth. 3 legendary platinum coins reinforced Hamon's mana circuits, plus 1 more for top-tier alchemy meds. The main character did the math. He just scored 10 years of power-ups chained to a soul-crushing 4-century debt. Panicking, he stuttered that he never asked for this VIP treatment. How could he ever pay off this monstrous mortgage? The hunter smirked. Lady Yun would politely ignore that astronomical bill as long as he worked as her loyal hound. Kidneys, liver, lungs, stomach, blood, bones, and even his manhood, that crazy shark would harvest his anatomy for pure platinum. Cold sweat drenched Haman. One tiny mistake, and he would end up as recycled spare parts. Hajin laid it out bluntly. Playing weak was garbage now. He had to go all out to impress the monarch. By the supreme ruler's absolute decree, he just earned himself a creepy 24/7 babysitter. Those daily reports literally dictated his survival. Haman finally realized why his dorm room came with 2 beds. Meanwhile, the spectral alchemist sighed. To the Martial King, Hajin might be a paranoid stalker, but he was their reliable ally. The other 2 ghostly legends immediately threw shade at him, judging the ultimate combo of creepy stalker and loan shark. The mage completely ignored Hajin. However, the tower physically shifting its architecture, that was absolutely unheard of in past lives. The ancient ghosts reached one terrifying conclusion. This impossible architectural glitch was happening entirely because of Haman. Usually constellations scattered randomly. But now they perfectly aligned in a massive domineering circle, bowing to his authority. When they regressed, their bodies vanished, leaving only their constellation stars behind. Anyone would be terrified seeing that cosmic graveyard. Staring at the bizarre night sky, the Martial King realized 8 whole stars belonged solely to the mage. Total overkill. The next 7 clearly belonged to the Martial King himself, meaning that blindingly massive final cluster was for the great alchemist. The Martial King stopped counting. Those stars were clumped so densely they were practically blinding his ghostly eyes. If their existence shattered the tower's layout, then the future was completely off the rails, unpredictable even to the alchemist. Since the monarch forcefully paired this odd couple, a hellish quest approached. Lady Yun loved pushing fresh meat to their limit. Back then, the notoriously grumpy Hajin desperately wanted to kick Haman out while the doll awaited any execution excuse. Yun prepared the ultimate exam while Haman fully intended to play dumb and hide his broken skills forever. Easy mode was officially locked. The Spectral King grabbed his popcorn, watching the hunters finally clear the immediate security breach. Haman whined about the suffocatingly tight mandatory uniform. Sure, it represented the absolute ruler, but why so tight? For 15 grueling days, he investigated if those crazy structural glitches had actually infected the lower dungeon floors. The landscape was completely twisted. After predicting catastrophic nightmares beyond the 5th floor, he planned to sprint back to the palace. However, his hardcore professor charged blindly ahead, intending to solo investigate up to the 20th floor. Management claimed the elevator was safe until floor 4, but crossing the 5th floor triggered a dead zone. 0 retreat allowed until floor 10. Haman despised this grumpy stalker, but forcing a painfully fake friendly smile might actually boost his survival odds. They snuck into a restricted VIP zone, standing before a super-secret elevator completely banned for ordinary players. It supposedly reached floor 7. Haman nervously complained about the claustrophobic cart, but Hajin ruthlessly slammed the start button anyway. Nobody even confirmed if this rusty death trap was safe. Haman ground his teeth, completely disgusted by his partner's absolute rudeness. This suspicious ride was banned for being wildly unpredictable, yet these crazy maniacs treated it like their personal daily commute. Any deadly glitch meant the tower was mutating again. Suddenly a heart-stopping sight. The cart tracks literally vanished into thin air. Hajin calmly declared their investigation should start right there. Haman reluctantly nodded, then froze. Did you hear that distant roar? Cue the grand entrance of a dozen absolutely hideous monsters. The only silver lining. They crashed into the lower floor. Hajin immediately barked at the main character to start fighting. Blades flashed as the duo carved through the endless monster wave. Afterward, a violently nauseous Haman practically gagged his lungs out. Wiping off monster blood, Hajin aggressively questioned why Haman hoarded his skills. Haman just arrogantly thought bare fists were enough. The veteran hunter scoffed. If a literal constellation was blessing him, he better spam those divine buffs and make it count. Sweating bullets, Heyman argued, his mana circuits dangerously overheated whenever he activated his risky skill. Out of nowhere, Hajin fiercely grabbed Hamon. The bewildered rookie froze as Hajin growled about him, fighting like a suicidal respawning idiot. The crazy monarch might adore that unhinged recklessness, but Hajin despised it. Hamon screamed to let go, but the grip tightened. The grim reality dropped. Elite hunters barely survived 12 months. Except for his monstrous professor, everyone else ended up dead or discarded. Hajin fired 5 shots. His own pupil fell to those nasty parasites, and his senior devoured right before his eyes for hesitating. He had watched countless fools perish, just to keep their precious skills a secret. Even veteran hunters become monster chow out here. To Han, this bloody outcome was painfully obvious. Hunters becoming the hunted, our main character knew this reality well. But street life taught Han a much darker truth. Most people eventually meet their grim end, right at the hands of their most trusted allies. He refused to trust anyone, not this guy, and definitely not that platinum monarch. His gut screamed to keep his skills and constellation backing completely hidden. The martial king caught on quickly. This kid was undeniably talented, but suspiciously secretive. The mage immediately brushed it off, while the alchemist firmly agreed that playing dumb was their best survival tactic. Regression was a 1-in-a-million miracle. It sounded absolutely crazy, but eventually, the shocking truth of his time-reversing powers would inevitably leak out. The martial king scoffed. Why panic over that? It was the perfect bait to recruit overwhelmingly powerful allies. The real nightmare was the monarch finding out. If she disapproved, she would forcefully reset the whole board. Yoon was a terrifying mastermind. Just by observing his moves, she had already suspected his regression multiple times. Approaching her without a foolproof plan was sheer suicide. If she confirmed his legendary ability, she would either ruthlessly steal it or enslave him into using it forever. Han's pure survival instinct kept that power locked down tight, but Hajin barked at him to quit playing the fool and unleash his abilities. Never underestimate the tower's hunters. Our main character wasn't acting cocky. He just desperately wanted to survive and conquer this hellish tower. He would unleash his hidden trump cards strictly on his own terms. Hajin hoped he would step up, but this stubborn attitude made him useless to their leader. Fine, then he decided to snitch to Yoon himself. Han was free to walk away, and Hajin would settle the massive platinum debt. Han cautiously stepped back. He was hiding his strength to survive, and this jerk was losing it. Sparks flew as they clashed. Han furiously yelled, "Just who the heck do you think you are to kick me out?" Honestly, the veteran hunter had every right to punt an arrogant rookie who dared defy his direct senior. Mid-brawl, our hero screamed a warning about a sudden structural shift, creating a massive cliff right behind them. Naturally, the stubborn senior refused to listen. And just like that, both idiots tumbled straight off a terrifyingly massive drop. Hajin groaned in agony, mid-air, loudly blaming Han for this absolute disaster. Working with this hopeless rookie was a total curse. Han fiercely snapped right back, shouting that it was the senior's fault as they plunged into the unknown abyss. The veteran casually mentioned the tower's basement. Han practically had a heart attack. They were supposed to be on the 4th floor. The basement was a pitch-black abyss, devoid of all light. A chilling memory struck Han. The creepy doll had once warned him about wandering down here and becoming a monstrous parasite. So this was the dreadful sensation of cursed moss consuming your flesh. Hajin grimly warned that lingering here meant transforming into mindless parasites themselves. They had crashed into a truly wretched zone. The very graveyard where humanity slaughtered the 10th floor boss 36 years ago. Despite the massive labyrinth shifts, ending up in this cursed wasteland was absolutely terrifying. Back in his prime, the mage relentlessly hunted for constellation traces down here. This deep basement served as the tower's ancient growth rings. Lost fragments of ancient stars littered the dark alongside mutated horrors. If they didn't escape immediately, they would face humanity's most primal nightmare. And trapped down here with just the two of them, this was about to turn into an absolute slaughter fest. The oppressive aura sent shivers down Han's spine. Hajin harshly barked at him to snap out of it before the infection claimed his sanity. Hours dragged on through the darkness without a single exit. Climbing was impossible. They had stumbled into the elevator zone, a chaotic spatial wormhole, when our main character innocently asked what a wormhole was. Hajin glared at him like a painfully uneducated bug. Letting out a massive sigh, the veteran explained that trying to exploit this shortcut would leave them permanently lost in space. Han smugly questioned why the senior was so desperate to kick him out, even offering to pay his massive debt. Met with silence, Han smirked. "Wait, do you secretly love me?" Hajin absolutely exploded, falling right into the cheeky rookie's trap. Spluttering in rage, he yelled that he just couldn't care less about hoarding money. "As long as I reach her high standards, that is all that matters." Han slyly teased that he must be hopelessly obsessed with the ruler, which instantly ticked Hajin off even more. Han practically tasted victory. If you do not have a massive crush on her, why are you blushing so defensively, he poked. Hajin frantically defended his honor. She had literally saved his life, and dedicating himself to her was just his way of paying back an impossible debt. Yeah, right. The guy was completely head over heels for her. That perfectly explained his intense jealousy toward Han, who had just scored a sweet constellation blessing. With a devious grin, Han offered to play the world's best wingman and set him up with Yoon. The monarch was already fascinated by him. They could totally hype each other up. Han would play the brilliant rookie protege, while Hajin looked like the ultimate legendary mentor. For a split second, Hajin's tempted face screamed deal, but instead of agreeing, he brutally shoved Han's face away to look at the horrors ahead. An exit right. Nope, that glowing light gave off major cosmic star energy, not daylight. A direct link to a constellation that totally explained the tower's weird remodeling. If true, this sparkling anomaly might just be their lucky escape ticket. This funky zone was definitely linked to the legendary first-floor gatekeeper. You know, those absurdly overpowered bosses blocking humanity's climb every 10 floors? Yeah, them. Beat the boss, and boom, it forms a shield blocking higher-tier monsters. Basically, clearing it flips the real estate straight into a human safe zone. Slaying these guardians was an absolute nightmare, but it was an unavoidable headache, and lying right there. The epic loot of the hunter, who crushed that first 10-floor boss. Han's brain screamed danger, but his gamer instincts itched. When the mage constellation literally dropped like our boy just had to ask for permission. Even the alchemist constellation gave a thumbs up. Clearly, Han's loot goblin radar was spot on. Hajin watched him mumbling like a total weirdo. Then Han actually grabbed the blade. Hajin shrieked, mind blown by the sheer stupidity. Snap. The sword instantly shattered, blasting them both across the room. The veteran screamed, asking who in their right mind touches random dungeon junk. As the glow died, Han mentally cursed the mage for trolling him. Poof, out of nowhere, a terrifying army of their own clones spawned everywhere. The clones swarmed Han, smashed one, shattering it into sparkly glass. Mirror clones, Hajin yelled in absolute panic. Welcome, the 10th floor boss, the mirror butterfly. This exact illusion spam gave even ancient constellations massive headaches back in the day. Sweating bullets, Han asked if swinging wildly was a bad idea. What if he accidentally gave Hajin a friendly fire haircut? Hajin barked back a strategy. Just stick to smashing your own reflection, and no friendly fire would ruin their day. Time to find the real boss. With no other choice, Hajin popped his ocular skill. Bingo. The sneaky main body glowed right behind the endless glass fakes. It had been 30 years since this annoying bug was first swatted. Modern hunters were way more overpowered now, right? If the boomers from the Dark Ages beat this trial, there was absolutely zero chance the modern duo would fail here today. Target acquired, Hajin lunged for the butterfly's core but whiffed hilariously. Stabbing into pitch-black voids was a lot harder than it looked in anime. Mid-swing, his center of gravity completely betrayed him, and he face-planted hard into the floor. The bug completely ignored the clumsy veteran. Instead, it swarmed Han, clearly sensing he was the actual major threat. Hajin raged, charging back to make the bug pay for the disrespect. Meanwhile, poor Han was drowning in clones, totally stressing over his fallen buddy. Honestly though, Hajin was the one who desperately needed babysitting in this chaotic duo. Han screamed for a cheat code. But these glass fakes spawned from the bug's nasty wing dust. They were completely infinite, until the main boss kicked the bucket. Han nervously mumbled a quick sorry for his loot-grabbing stunt. He totally blamed the chatty constellations for hyping him up. Clearly, it was all just a huge glittery misunderstanding. Hajin blinked, impressed by the rookie's insane survival skills. Still, dodging was useless. Han whined that the boss's weak spot was literally invisible to his rookie eyes. Hajin yelled a warning. The bug distorted reflections, throwing your inner equilibrium completely out the window. How did boomers even clear this nightmare? Apparently, a legendary dawn constellation named Ripple literally cheesed the entire trial back in the day. Han snapped, asking why Hajin hid the walkthrough guide. They could just copy-paste the legendary winning strat. Because she essentially flashbanged the entire room, Hajin groaned, explaining she shattered every mirror simultaneously. The catch. You needed Ripple's personal blessing to use that blinding flash. Without it, they desperately needed an artifact dripping with her divine radiant energy. Ding. Hajin remembered the broken blade. They desperately needed to loot it back. Confused but desperate, Han trusted the veteran's crazy plan. Up above, the mage breathed a massive sigh, thrilled the idiots were finally cooperating properly. Yup, that sneaky mage forced the sword grab on purpose. Sure, speedrunning for loot was great, but this trial had a hidden motive. These two stubborn dorks desperately needed a crash course in teamwork. Future floors were pure hell, demanding total trust, making this risky test worth it. Plus, Ripple was basically a giant sugar mama to struggling newbies. With decent luck, they would score an epic buff. Thankfully, Han spotted the wrecked blade instantly. Busted stick even work? Hajin yelled yes, commanding him to wait for the ping. Only a sad, tiny metal shard remained anyway. Even with skills, generating a room-clearing flashbang was brutal. Suddenly, the giant bug warped right behind our oblivious rookie. Hajin shrieked a warning. Spin around and swing blindly toward 10 o'clock. No peeking allowed. Han spun, but locked eyes with a mirror. Seeing a nauseating twisted illusion, Hajin roasted him as an idiot, while Han whined about his zero-boss experience. The sneaky boss relentlessly teleported. Hajin was totally locked out of using the relic, and his radar had completely lost the giant bug's location. Time for Plan B. Out of nowhere, Han aggressively bear-hugged the veteran, leaving Hajin completely bamboozled. He vowed to strike using his own vision, ordering Hajin to track down the beast. Relying solely on sight was risky, but the martial king guaranteed victory. Hamin triggered his reminiscence, but mistakenly summoned the mage instead. Our main character questioned needing backup, yet the mage smirked. It was finally time to do things his way. Seeing a veteran struggle with something this pathetic, he felt deeply ashamed to even call it a trial. Hamin froze. Whose voice was echoing in his skull? It had to be the mage. A mysterious shadow chuckled back. The first step is always hell, but then it becomes child's play. Suddenly, the Platinum Monarch's aura descended. Meanwhile, Hajin stood entirely paralyzed, completely clueless about this epic phenomenon. Hamin had essentially hijacked his mana circuit. Even the mirror butterfly and its illusions froze completely. Hajin gasped at this god-tier power. The mage scoffed, trading away distortion to trap the bug with his absolute gaze. The foul insect remained paralyzed under observation. Dimensional distortion was utterly useless against a piercing stare. It only scurried through the absolute darkness, perfectly hidden from human eyes. That explains why the constellation ripple drowned the room in holy light. However, the mage operated on a completely different level. Rejecting the monarch's path, he carved his own destiny. The best way to squash a bug, wrap it in cloth. With a singular arrogant snap of Hamin's fingers, Hajin watched the butterfly instantly explode. Instantly, the martial king possessed Hamin's body. Our hero desperately yelled at Hajin to keep his eyes locked. He needed an instant kill. Wielding a scavenged blade, Hamin unleashed the master of 10,000 swords, flooding the domain with divine light and annihilating the mirror butterfly. As the epic clash ended, Hamin dramatically collapsed, only regaining consciousness a short while later. What on earth just happened? The raw impact lingered vividly, demanding a proper logical explanation. Did the trial completion trigger a system reset? Suddenly, the ethereal projection of Ripple materialized right before his shocked eyes. The constellation smashed the like button and bestowed the blessing of light. He could now radiate starlight by burning his item's durability. Our hero appreciated the gift, but wasn't this skill hilariously pathetic compared to legendary hunter perks? Well, at least he scored a human flashlight upgrade. He bowed to express gratitude, but her phantom had already vanished, gone without a single trace. How dramatic! Suddenly, the mage dropped a smug like on our hero's status window. Hamin ultimately decided this blessing was incredibly useful. Plus, he had overheard some juicy secrets mid-battle. It was clearly the mage's ancient memory with the Platinum Monarch. What twisted fate connected Yoon to these divine constellations? He had to know. The mage had completely dominated Hajin's body in a flash, effortlessly capturing that evasive butterfly. The nightmare of the tower's basement finally made perfect sense. The surface birthed fresh legends, while the abyss doomed souls to repeat ancient histories. Trapped in this hellish cycle, it's absolutely no wonder an ordinary human would mutate into a monstrous parasite. Hamin urgently verified his spiritual congruence rate. Unbelievable. He had shattered the 90% threshold with the mage. A massive level up was approaching. Hamin scrambled to find Hajin accidentally exposing his overpowered abilities instead of playing it cool. Messing with his mana circuit should have been utterly fatal. Exiting the chamber, disgusting green moss immediately began reclaiming his skin. Time to test Ripple's sacred blessing. Since it aggressively burned durability, he smartly selected his most worthless trash dagger. He triggered the holy radiance, instantly banishing the oppressive shadows to reveal his surroundings. His eerie discomfort vanished completely. This divine illumination guaranteed he wouldn't mutate into a foul parasite anytime soon. Our main character beamed proudly as the mage approved. Suddenly, Hajin materialized behind him like a creepy, silent ghost. Well, look at that. He evidently scored Ripple's divine blessing too. Actually, Hajin just unlocked basic night vision. Hamin sighed in massive relief over his vastly superior skill. Turns out his sunbae merely vanished to scout the gloomy perimeter. If Ripple had survived, she absolutely would have become an idolized legend among countless rookie hunters. Hamin looked completely baffled. How was that possible when he literally just interacted with her phantom? Hajin tilted his head in pure confusion. Ripple ascended 16 years ago. She only ever manifested through vague system whispers. Normal hunters couldn't witness deceased constellations yet. Hamin saw her brilliant essence. Deciding not to pry, Hajin simply dropped the bizarre topic. He blamed it on mirror-induced hallucinations. Acting like a pro, he casually led our main character toward the newly discovered tracks. Hamin's sweat dropped at his sunbae's chilling calmness. He half expected Hajin to brutally murder him on sight, but surprisingly, nothing happened. As Hajin opened his mouth, Haman instantly braced for a terrifying lecture. Instead, the elite hunter awkwardly muttered a sincere thank you for securing their epic victory. Stunned, Haman burst into hysterical laughter. He teasingly demanded his sunbae repeat it to his face, utterly convinced his own ears were playing ridiculous tricks on him. Flustered by Haman's relentless teasing, Hajin swiftly rejected him and scrambled away. Emerging from the depths, they finally hit the 9th floor. Their grueling one-week underground expedition was officially over. The monarch praised their efforts, ordering Hajin to deliver the report. Haman felt totally scammed, but hey, they actually cleared the whole zone. Still incredibly salty, Hajin spat venom, declaring Haman completely and utterly useless. Our main character was speechless. The sheer disrespect. Hajin even pondered if executing Haman for pure platinum would yield better profits. Interrupting the tension, the monarch asked for Haman's rookie perspective on his first true hunter raid inside the tower. Haman clapped right back. He loudly branded Hajin as nothing but an obnoxious burden. Yun beamed, wildly misinterpreting their bickering as friendship. She ordered Haman to finally rest, an offer he accepted instantly. A steaming shower was exactly what he needed. When Hajin whined about pointless reports, Yun sharply reminded him of his actual rank. Hajin firmly believed this outsider would only drag their prestigious guild's reputation straight through the mud. However, she absolutely refused to let him roam like a stray dog. Capturing him by force, that guarantees he bolts, or worse, his creepy doll rips their heads off. Yun casually brushed off the doll threat. Hajin recognized that terrifying smirk. Her brain was already calculating maximum profit. She immediately shifted focus to the tower's crumbling structural integrity. Hajin's mentor had apparently breached the 20th floor. Based on his leftover clues, those greedy constellations were causing this architectural collapse. With divine beings descending, Yun decided warning the workshop was their absolute smartest survival tactic. We are not just dealing with constellation-backed hunters anymore. Nasty dimensional parasites are crashing the party too. Even Ripple, her childhood acquaintance, had supposedly descended. These impulsive constellations definitely were not doing the rookies any favors. Those supreme beings belong upstairs. Changing the subject, Yun demanded Hajin's brutally honest review of Haman's highly emotional combat display. Hajin scoffed, denying his bad mood. Honestly, he was completely blown away by the rookie's insane skills. Regarding a potential master, Yun concluded, Haman's overpowered constellation lineup made a mortal teacher totally irrelevant. Hajin strongly agreed. He had definitely sensed at least 2 divine auras, though their true identities remained masked. Descending deities. The crumbling tower and Haman suddenly arriving, practically radiating divine energy. There is absolutely zero chance that is a coincidence. Yun delegated the investigation to Hajin as he took his leave. He still owed the Supreme Ruler a full breakdown of their chaotic mission. Haman, freely manipulating his own mana circuits, still infuriated him. That freakish ability completely defied Yun's established power dynamics. Just who the hell is this newbie? Meanwhile, Haman was over the moon. His injuries vanished, leaving his physical stats drastically boosted. Those expensive elixirs were working miracles. Suddenly, aggressive hammering echoed from his bedroom door. Instantly annoyed, Haman assumed that Jerk Hajin had returned. Yanking the handle, he yelled about the door-smashing violence. Plot twist, it was actually Yun. She immediately noticed our dripping wet protagonist, fresh from his steamy shower. Haman panicked, leaping backward. Yun casually explained she feared he actually drowned, justifying her sudden home invasion. Blushing furiously, our hero stammered out excuses about finally indulging in a desperately needed hot bath. The monarch smirked, commanding him to follow her once dressed. It was time for his sweet mission reward. Utterly confused but highly intrigued, the main character trailed right behind her. Despite appreciating his hygiene, Yun scolded him for overheating his mana circuits. Idiotic hunters always ignored crucial core maintenance. The almighty tower system has flaws. Even legendary gold-tier circuits cannot infinitely self-repair. Since he possessed fragile steel circuits, the Platinum Monarch offered weekly personal tune-ups. His epic reward, a pure platinum circuit upgrade. Haman was absolutely floored. Was she seriously handing out more ridiculously expensive currency? It was not rocket science. She simply wanted to fortify his abused body to survive harsher battles. Haman felt a genuine wave of gratitude. He could literally feel his physical defense leveling up in real time. Yun enthusiastically claimed that a deeper internal scan could unlock even crazier power-ups for him. Fortunately, his overprotective constellations blocked her scans. She desperately hoped those deities understood she only meant well. Gaining strength was awesome, but exposing his secrets felt risky. Suddenly, his divine sponsors started bickering endlessly in his head, driving him crazy. Caught awkwardly muttering to thin air by Yun, Haman frantically waved his hands, swearing he was not talking to her. Yun chuckled knowingly. She completely understood the chaotic reality of directly chatting with your demanding constellations. A massive wave of system windows suddenly flooded his vision. Why were his sponsors throwing such a massive tantrum? He had to act fast. Sweating bullets, Haman politely declined the monarch's generous offer. Having his fragile mana circuits manually dismantled sounded like a complete death trap. Our boy scrambles for a lame excuse, but Yoon shuts it down. As hunter and master, they share one epic destiny to save humanity. So why play games when his life is literally on the line? Her piercing gaze demands the absolute truth. What possible reason could he have for keeping her in the dark? He recognized his raw, monstrous potential. To forge him into an absolute legend, those brutal training treatments were completely necessary. Our hero sweats buckets. Was guarding his secret power really worth fighting his terrifying boss this hard? Honestly, having the Platinum Monarch as an ally was massive. She literally ruled the city with absolute, unquestionable authority. But absolute power is lonely. Finding someone with both elite strength and unwavering loyalty was impossible. Heyman stutters out a pathetic reply, completely clueless about true teamwork. Yoon reads him like an open book. The lone wolf desperately needs to learn how to trust an ally. So to forge an unbreakable bond, she proposes starting with the absolute basics of human connection. She abruptly asks about his love life, and he admits he is completely clueless. Surprised, she nods. In mutual understanding, turns out the mighty monarch is totally inexperienced too. Boom, she casually drops a nuclear suggestion they should just start dating. That would build trust. Heyman's brain totally short circuits. The peanut gallery of elite huntsmen lose their absolute minds. Has their cold-blooded monarch gone totally insane? This bizarrely calm approach is completely terrifying compared to her usual explosive raging at our poor protagonist. Even the cynical alchemist flips out. The monarch is famous for having an icy heart. This weird squad hopes Heyman's absurd new romance with Yoon might finally melt her freezing personality. The alchemist violently rejects the idea. Jumping straight into romance and bed sharing is totally ridiculous. Let's be real, our hero radiates massive virgin energy. Even Heyman is deeply traumatized by the brutal call-out. He has literally zero romantic experience. Sure, he talks to female allies, but holding hands, pure fantasy territory. The terrifying executioner doll interrogates him about his date plans. He just came begging for a lifeline, though she has no idea why he chose her for love advice. Amon sweats nervously. She is secretly the most reasonable one here. Asking the other psycho for help would result in immediate painful death. Plot twist. This menacing living doll is a knight, bound by a strict vow of celibacy. Her practical dating experience is literally absolute zero. But hold on, she is an absolute master of romance novels, reading more cheesy smut than anyone alive. Fueled by fictional tropes, she confidently accepts the mission. Hamon cries tears of joy, but she immediately shatters his hopes that terrible outfit has to go. Cue the catastrophic fashion montage. He picks the absolute worst outfits, and the angry doll viciously roasts his garbage taste. Strike 2. His next glorious outfit makes him look like a cheap low-level street thug. Ironically, she approves the most boring basic outfit he hates. He is utterly horrified, but arguing might actually trigger her executioner instincts and cost him his head. The store clerk smiles, demanding a soul-crushing 300,000 won. A pathetic cold sweat drenches our hero. Even his doll fashion guru is completely disgusted. Who goes shopping without a single dime in their pocket? He frantically blames Yoon for confiscating his wallet. Annoyed, the doll violently slams her own card down. He swears on his life to repay her, dodging a brutal execution. Her anger boils over. Watching this hopeless loser play romance protagonist is giving her massive psychic damage. She demands to know his epic date course. His master plan, just wandering aimlessly down random streets like a total clueless amateur. He proudly defends his terrible street-walking idea. The doll mentally facepalms, convinced this guy is a walking red flag for any woman alive. Out of nowhere, the majestic Yoon arrives. Our boy lights up completely. Thrilled she showed up early. The monarch glares, demanding why the doll is bothering her precious hunter. The terrified doll stammers out gibberish, instantly retreating so the big romantic plans can begin. No time for chatting. The dominant monarch grabs our blushing hero by the hand, dragging him off toward their destiny. He mouths a desperate thank you to the paralyzed doll, completely stunned that this absurd date is actually happening. Strolling together, the monarch commands him to drop the formalities and use her real name. After fixing his awkward manners, she playfully asks how he tracked her down. She playfully giggles, casually revealing she secretly planted a magical tracking circuit right inside his body. Hamon forces a terrified laugh. That bright smile totally clashes with her insane stalker behavior. He seriously questions if being aggressively dragged along even counts as romance. Whatever, the date continues into the shady back alleys, just as planned. But suddenly, creepy street thugs spot Yoon and smell easy money. Our boy immediately regrets his terrible route choice. They just triggered a random encounter with heavily armed mobsters. Time for some epic hero action. He drops into a fighting stance and shouts a warning. But plot twist, the goons instantly run away, screaming, leaving him totally confused. He stands there, totally dumbfounded. The villains bolted without throwing a single punch. Aha! He spots the executioner doll creeping behind them like the world's least subtle stalker. Yoon snaps him out of his daze, ordering her distracted date to keep moving. 8 brutal hours later, our boy's legs are practically dead from an agonizingly silent marathon walk. Even their secret stalker is dying of absolute boredom. The clueless monarch finally realizes something is wrong. Aren't dates supposed to trigger massive heart-fluttering moments instead of awkward silence? Haemin sweats, admitting his heart is pounding, but strictly out of pure survival panic. Acknowledging their epic romantic failure, Yoon demands they pivot to Plan B immediately. Our boy Haemin was blushing like a ripe tomato. But somehow this awkward date dragged them straight into a shady, cup-shuffling gambling den. Yoon slammed her cash down first. Haemin just sweat-dropped, completely bewildered by this chaotic turn of events. The hustler lifted the cup, revealing absolute nothingness. Tragically, our mighty monarch had totally whiffed 8 consecutive rounds. She radiated absolute confidence, despite blowing 1 million flat. Fueled by pure gambler's delusion, she furiously demanded a rematch. Amon watched in absolute horror. The scammer grinned, thinking he had hooked the ultimate cash cow as she hilariously failed every single guess. Smirking at her endless losing streak, the hustler eagerly offered her another tragic round. Yoon stubbornly declared this, her final stand. Haemin desperately wanted to bolt, but this gamble-crazy monarch casually materialized a massive gold coin. The entire crowd gasped. They completely thought this crazy lady had lost her absolute mind. The scammer suddenly sweat bullets. Staring at Yoon Shang's terrifying aura, he realized quitting now would guarantee his absolute destruction. Trapped in his own shady game, the poor hustler trembled violently like a leaf in a hurricane. Sweating profusely, he attempted his sleight of hand. Meanwhile, Yoon casually asked if Haemin's heart was racing, to which our blushing boy nodded. With dramatic flair, she pointed at her target. The warm-up phase was officially terminated. The trembling hustler revealed yet another empty cup. Amon suspected a genius master plan, but nope, she just literally sucked at gambling. Utterly bamboozled by her own terrible instincts, she doubled down, slamming a mountain of shiny gold onto the table. The crowd's jaws hit the floor. The terrified scammer silently screamed, realizing he was dealing with an absolute lunatic. Boom. A crusty old hag shoved through the crowd. The final boss of this shady casino had officially arrived. Bouncers aggressively cleared the room. The hag demanded Yoon's identity, but our furious monarch fiercely protested the game's sudden cancellation. This sharp-eyed granny instantly knew the truth. This mysterious girl was purely here to wreck her shady establishment. Suddenly, the hag locked eyes with Haemin. She recognized the exact cheeky brat who recently slaughtered their precious elder. Amon internally panicked. This creepy granny was a dreaded spider-leg. Battle auras flared, and our boy braced for absolute chaos. But obliterating the fierce tension, Yoon casually slapped a ridiculously shiny platinum coin onto the table. The hag's brain short-circuited the supreme monarch. Here Yoon cheerfully explained she was just enjoying a lovely little date. Out of nowhere, her creepy executioner doll curb-stomped a guard. It sweetly promised a total bloodbath if the hag even breathed wrong. The granny sweated buckets. This absurd gambling spree was literally a giant ridiculous trap just to lure her out. Yoon giggled like a menace. She demanded her money back, cheerfully threatening to slice everyone into sashimi if they quit playing. Talk about aggressive negotiations. Sweating profusely, the terrified casino boss was hilariously forced back into the scammer's chair. Yoon totally could have used torture. But why bother when you can flex decades of degenerate gambling addiction instead? The hag smirked, knowing Yoon was a totally garbage player. But plot twist, Yoon confidently tagged a bewildered Haemin into the battlefield. The granny squinted suspiciously. This kid looked dangerously sharp. Sweating, she suggested a hardcore shuffle before the ultimate guess. Amon had eagle eyes, but scamming this veteran hag using normal sleight of hand was totally impossible. Our boy took the hot seat. In his mind, Dynamite eagerly cheered, absolutely thrilled by this high-stakes casino degeneracy. Time for massive cheat codes. Amon slyly summoned his ghostly alchemist buddy to completely rig the entire game. Armed with supernatural gambling hacks, Haemin smoothly forced the hag to reveal a hilariously empty cup. The veteran scammer's jaw literally unhinged. She furiously demanded to know his magical cheating methods. Amon burst into cheeky laughter. Honestly, even he had zero clue how his ghost pulled off that sneaky trick. With an exaggerated cough, he tapped the table like a total mafia boss. The desperate hag practically begged for his secret. Amon smugly cited street rules. A true hustler never reveals their magic. Dynamite was absolutely losing his mind with joy. Yoon gleefully declared total victory. Panic seized the old hag. Stuck in the monarch's trap, she desperately needed a miraculous escape. Shrieking like a banshee, she ordered her goons to attack. Mon deflected poison needles, and Sparta kicked the table straight into her face. Our boy instantly pinned her down. The enraged guards drew their weapons, ready to turn him into mincemeat. He viciously threatened to snap her neck if anyone twitched. Yun cheerfully approved the hostage situation, casually melting the poisoned weapons. What a spectacular disaster. Seeking privacy, the gang dragged their captured prey all the way up to the desolate rooftop. Dropping the cute act, Yoon initiated a hardcore interrogation regarding the city's absolute garbage security. Fake cash, rampant violence, and bloody murders. She fiercely demanded to know who orchestrated this massive betrayal, though the hag desperately denied everything. Excuses were completely useless against her terrifying aura. The Supreme Monarch ordered the shaking woman to spill every single secret. The monarch brings up their captured rat, demanding to know if more backstabbers are hiding in the shadows. Kyung violently thrashes around. She screams that she only hustled penniless losers, totally clueless about the spider's shady recruits, and demands they unhand her. Yun smirks, admitting the old hag had her uses. But one burning mystery remains. How did she pull off a flawless win streak? The trick was pathetically simple. A tiny hole hidden beneath the table let them gently bump the cup to victory. Yoon dramatically pouts at the cheap hustle. Hamon and Kyung completely lose their minds, screaming at the almighty monarch for falling for such garbage. Regardless, Kyung gets slapped with murder, theft, and rigged gambling charges. Did she actually think the ruthless monarch would let her walk away breathing? Even if Yoon spared her, the insanely strict doll would totally execute her anyway. Hamon awkwardly realizes the old lady is completely doomed. These ladies are terrifying perfectionists. Desperate Kyung screeches at our main character, begging him to see the absolute psycho hiding behind Yoon's face. Survival instincts or not, crossing the Platinum Monarch was a fast track to the graveyard. The hag fiercely bites back, denying the setup. She drops a massive bombshell. Yoon is the real monster, planning to butcher the entire city. The spider had hard evidence, proving they desperately needed a new ruler. This wasn't some petty scheme, it was a desperate crusade to dethrone the tyrant. Hamon blankly stares as Yoon effortlessly snuffs out Kyung's life. The monarch just dramatically sighs, annoyed by the dead lady's relentless screaming. If those dying words held truth, a catastrophic secret was rotting at the very core of their city. As Haman intensely sweats over the conspiracy, Yoon cheerfully declares it is tower realignment time. She pulls our hero to the rooftop edge for some suspiciously romantic stargazing. Fingers intertwined beneath the cosmos, a blushing Yoon cheekily asks if he enjoyed their little rooftop date. She eagerly demands a round two. A sweating Hamon frantically nods along, completely terrified of the brutal beating Hajin might deliver over this sudden romance. How does he confess the terrifying monarch has a crush on him without getting murdered? Catching his panicked stares, Hajin aggressively barks at him to spit it out. Flinching like a total coward, our hero rapidly changes the subject to their next mission. He nervously brings up the nasty parasite rumors infesting the 10th floor. They desperately need to investigate if the shifting tower structure spawned these creepy crawlies. This mutation could permanently wreck the ecosystem. Smirking dangerously, Hajin orders her nervous companion to gear up for battle. The babysitting duo rides again, with Hajin acting as his strict overlord. Hamon just quietly panics, utterly baffled by Yoon's sweet attitude after that brutal execution. In this twisted city, the silent constellations in the sky felt like his only genuine allies. Hitting the 10th floor 60 minutes later, Hamon instantly blows chunks. A ruthless Hajin just cackles at his paper-thin stomach, completely ignoring his pathetic groans. Out of nowhere, a weapons workshop hunter approaches, double-checking if they are the legendary monarch's personal attack dogs. Big Boss Geomuk requested a face-to-face. Hajin scoffs at the weirdly high-profile invitation, but they shrug and follow the intimidating guide anyway. A bewildered Hammond asks Hajin about Geomuk, the absolute legend of the first-generation Constellation Wars. This unstoppable powerhouse founded the Hunter Association and monopolized the weapons workshop. He cleaved through the tower's nightmare zones, becoming the people's ultimate shield. Why would such a powerhouse downgrade to a simple guard job? Hajin casually replies that the old man is just built different, a true living saint. Time for a lore drop. Ages ago, the fanatical Church of Eternity ruled everything, commanded by an enigmatic figure called the Lord. Their holy influence was terrifying, and this supreme Lord could actually communicate with the tower. While the constellations were distracted fighting off cosmic invasions, the twisted holy leader crushed any civilian uprisings with merciless, bloody tyranny. Boom. Enter a 17-year-old Yoon claiming the throne. Her explosive arrival shattered the status quo, lighting the spark that erupted into an all-out civil war. Surprisingly, the ones who threw their massive weight behind the teenage rebel were the notoriously stingy Alchemy Workshop. Hamon's jaw drops. He cannot believe those coin-pinching merchants risked their necks, considering they normally throw massive tantrums over missing pennies. The church possessed godlike healing, literally resurrecting the dead and curing plagues. For the potion-selling alchemists, those miracles were absolutely destroying their profit margins. Driven by pure capitalist greed, the workshop funded Yoon's chaotic rise to power, keeping her alive long enough to steal the crown. Thus, the legendary Blue and White War bathed the streets in blood, but the church was an unmovable mountain, heavily fortified by elite holy knights and loyal hunters. The rebel forces were getting completely crushed, their desperate dreams of freedom slowly crumbling under holy steel. Enter the game-changer Geomuk, the legendary godfather of all hunters, finally descended from the upper floors of the tower. This absolute legend abandoned civilian politics to conquer the tower's nightmares, rejecting ultimate authority to bleed on the chaotic front lines. The hunter community practically worshipped him. The second he backed Yoon as the rightful leader, the tides turned. Even a legendary prophet-turned-constellation stood by his massive aura, a massive domino effect. With Geomuk endorsing the teenage prodigy hunters defected in droves, the battlefield transformed into a devastating meat grinder of holy and rebel blood. The apocalyptic clash threatened to completely wipe the entire city off the map. Then the ultimate mic drop. The doll waltzed onto the blazing front lines, casually carrying the severed heads of the top church executives. Overnight, the holy enforcers became branded heretics. Hamon bursts into nervous laughter at how absolutely on-brand that was for her. The divine empire instantly crumbled to dust, crowning Yun as the undisputed victor. The Hunter Association ripped itself apart. Weapons clashed against circuits. Now the Platinum Monarch rules it all. Hajin nodded. Sure, that puppet ended the bloodbath, but without Geo's genius, total doom. Honestly, Geomuk should be sitting on that throne. Han totally understood. The crazy old man became a total hermit just to save the city. Floors 1 through 9 made up the first staircase. From 10 to 90, welcome to the second. Every 10 levels, the tower's whole vibe mutated. The first staircase, creepy buried ruins topped with a massive overgrown forest. The second staircase was a literal war zone. Even the Martial King shudders, remembering the endless grinding he did there. One glance at that scorching desert makes the alchemist violently sick, plus level 10 slaps a brutal limit on potions. The mage actually skipped this hellhole. He zoomed straight to the third staircase, completely clueless about their insane suffering. But Geomuk warned them, this place was an absolute nightmare, and the higher you climb, the more twisted it becomes. Han's jaw practically dropped, seeing Geomuk, a scrawny beanpole. Totally shattered his epic expectations. Geomuk grilled them about the lower levels. Hajin shrugged it off. Just some minor glitches, nothing worth sweating over. But the grumpy elder wasn't buying it. The vibe was completely cursed, especially with Yoon ruling the city. Hajin brought up that terrifying high-tier monster. Geomuk scoffed. Those freaks only spawn on floor 17 and beyond. Yet this mutant spawned on level 11. Geomuk glared cluelessly at Han, forcing the rookie to awkwardly spit out an introduction. The old man completely blanked him. He bluntly warned that the Lord's hunter was basically a walking corpse. Han almost snapped, thinking this dusty geezer would drop dead first, but Hajin quickly yanked him back. Shifting gears, Hajin requested access to the mutant spawn floor. The tower's massive architecture had violently shifted in scale, especially near the undiscovered gates. This spatial distortion birthed the infamous Ripple case. They finally realized she was hiding among the divine constellations. That perfectly explained why her sacred domains were physically relocating, if that spatial ripple flared like the North Star total catastrophe. So Hajin interrogated Geomuk about the secret mirror room. The elder flinched, denying everything. Hajin coldly reminded him, any 10th floor chaos must be instantly reported to security. Geomuk barked back. Why panic when he was standing right there? Realizing his slip, Hajin quickly swallowed his pride and apologized. Han chimed in. The mirror room linked straight to the mythical butterfly mirror. Hunter Yi Ilo could explain the lore. Geomuk prayed that would fix this headache. Han was utterly baffled by a constellation acting so petty. Hajin furiously shushed him for such blasphemy. Floor 11 was the suspected glitch zone, a grim hill marked by a shattered flagpole. With hunters vanishing into thin air, the fortresses dispatched backup. Amidst the bloody clash, parasites desperately tried planting their flags. Only one flag remained. Did the infested horde know its secret location? Han pointed at a rotting corpse, but nope, that was a fully mutated parasite. Hajin grit his teeth. This was only the second staircase. Yet these freaks kept charging despite having fatal gaping wounds. They operated as a terrifying hive mind, totally conscious. Han deadpanned that it was literally just a zombie apocalypse. The execution method: shred the heart and rip out its gold core, or bury the monster in absolute pitch-black darkness. Tragically, these second-floor abominations used to be human. To purge them, 3 chief hunters and 20 elite soldiers deployed. Even against a high-tier mutant, this squad would instantly crush it. Honestly, Lord Yoon had absolutely zero reasons to stress. Still, since they arrived, might as well investigate. But Han vividly sensed the hostile glaring from the local crew. Boom! Hajin instantly drew his blazing daggers, screaming at Han to brace himself. An endless swarm of rotting horrors charged. A weapons workshop hunter was trapped right in the deadly epicenter. He was mere seconds from death. Time for a crazy rescue mission. The parasitic tsunami crashed down. Hajin roared a warning. The bloodbath began, but these immortal freaks only died from brutal decapitations. Slicing the heart and looting the gold core was also strictly mandatory. Han obediently hacked away like an absolute madman. These variants were terrifyingly stronger than the first-floor trash. Parrying their blows felt like fighting a seasoned martial artist. Farming gold cores rocked, but this parasite war was pure hell. Han was getting totally swarmed until a lifesaver suddenly intervened. Hajin naggingly roasted him. Han's reckless, flashy moves were burning too much stamina. At this rate, he would become dead weight. Han snarkily fired back. Just how many kills did this so-called efficiency expert rack up? Hajin coldly smirked. He slaughtered 5 while Han was still crying over a single bug. And Hajin's dagger was barely a pocket knife, but his god-tier technique delivered fatal strikes, his secret weapon, flawless footwork, and lethal rotational momentum in every single slash. Ping Han literally summoned the martial king's spirit for backup. Mimicking that rapid spinning stab, our hero unleashed a totally overpowered, hyper-efficient massacre. Hajin's jaw dropped. First try, seriously. It honestly ticked him off that Hamon scaled up so effortlessly, practically carried by his personal constellation. The martial king just facepalmed. Why? Because that flashy move Hamon just flexed was totally copied straight from Hajin. Even before tagging in backup, Hamon was playing 4D chess. He could literally feel the power-ups stacking. "Bro, you're so slow," the mage scoffed, bragging his magic would speed. "Run this." The alchemist instantly chimed in, demanding equal credit for potion spamming. A ridiculous shouting match erupted. Both giant egos clashed, absolutely convinced they were the ultimate MVP here. The petty bickering dragged on until the martial king awkwardly apologized, hoping to spare the alchemist's fragile ego. Way back when he was human, some jerk dismissed his entire profession. Hearing alchemists are useless again completely triggered his villain origin story. Fast forward 6 months. Fueled by pure, unadulterated spite, he utterly bulldozed every single parasite across floors 11 through 13. He guaranteed dead hunters wouldn't zombify into parasites. That ridiculous feat of spite actually scored him his very first star. The martial king's eyes bugged out. That insane level of pest control was basically rewriting the tower's whole ecosystem. Smugging it up, the alchemist soaked in the praise. He was a professional life-taker. Whipping up healing juice was practically a side hustle. Yet here he was, whining endlessly. He had brewed a massive potion stash for Yun, accidentally saving way too many people. Honestly, the monarch definitely nerfed him out of pure terror. She probably sweated bullets, thinking his overpowered villainy would instantly nuke the city's tower. She slapped him with a totally boring desk job. The alchemist gasped, utterly offended by the truth. Meanwhile, the mage just ruthlessly told him to zip it and keep marching. They weren't here for bug duty. They wanted glorious tower, conquering clout. Wrapping up his task, Haman just let out a heavy, tired sigh. Sprinting to the knocked-out hunter, they frantically demanded where the squad went. The dizzy guy mumbled, trying to address Geomach, but then he spotted Hajin, the dude who literally massacred them, and completely lost his mind. He shrieked, instantly flatlined, and Haman ruthlessly double-tapped him. Hajin yelled, "Bro, what the heck?" Haman coolly claimed it was anti-parasite prevention. Hajin felt massive guilt for his buddy. Still, he awkwardly pretended everything was completely fine. "Didn't he literally crap his pants seeing you?" Hammond quipped. Hajin's sweat dropped, deciding this was definitely not the time for stand-up comedy. "Move your butts, we have a massive crisis." Reaching floor 11, they found a total graveyard. They were ridiculously late. The hunter gulped. Who wiped out this entire squad? Suddenly, panicked shrieks demanded they back off. A girl wailed for rescue, crying. The parasite swarm was literally endless. They dashed in right before she got chomped. She flopped down, sobbing, terrified thank yous. "It was you." Heil Hunter Lee furiously checked her pulse. Haman blinked. What was a total newbie doing on level 2? Lee demanded a squad update, and she blubbered everyone was wiped. He screamed for details, but Hamon quickly played peacekeeper. Rubbing his temples, Lee asked for survivors. Sniffing, the rookie confirmed the vice captains were tanking the front line. Scoreboard: 7 dead, 9 heavily injured, and 5 completely vanished. Regrouping at the makeshift hospital, only one dude looked functional. She was desperately playing whack-a-mole with rising zombies. Bowing aggressively, Yu Heil stammered an apology. She only played hero because literally nobody else was breathing. Lee swallowed his pride awkwardly, praising her clutch survival. Then he grilled Chief Kangman for the tactical playback. Kangman groaned about an illegal zombie centipede spawn. Hajin tilted his head. "You mean the floor 18 boss? Because that thing is total fodder." Kangman shivered dramatically. Compared to their usual trash mobs, this overgrown bug was an absolute raid boss nightmare. Plus, the zombie spam was totally out of control. Exhausted, he tapped out, forcing Yu Heil to lore drop the rest. Hajin fired up an interrogation, making Yu Heil sweat. He smirked, daring her to plead the fifth if things got spicy. She squeaked out a parasite trap theory. Hamon nearly dropped his sword when she casually mentioned the zombie centipede could talk. Rookie honestly believed spilling the monster's shady deal would instantly rally the boys to her side. As official Monarch goons, their job was analyzing bug strategies. Hearing these two belonged to Yunyu Hail, lost her marbles. Stuttering wildly, she blurted the craziest idea to survive. They needed to escort her straight to the talking bug. Finally, Hajin understood her sheer panic. Trembling, she pointed down the hall where a literal zombie tsunami was currently sprinting. The rotting traffic jam completely blocked the exit. Lee shoved bodyguard duty onto Yu Hail and she bolted. Plot twist: the zombies aggressively pointed at Hamon. They croaked out a wild bargain, hand him over and the rest live. Lee's jaw dropped, especially seeing Heyman actually tempted. The undead bragged some edgy black apparition guaranteed this VIP deal. Hamon tilted his head in pure confusion. Hajin just sighed casually, dropping that this entity was actually a 5-star constellation. Shattering that sacred vow meant losing her absolute rank. The main character gasped. Weren't these starry constellations supposed to buff hunters, not backstab them? Lee screamed to just do it, but Hajin completely ignored that garbage idea. Hamon blinked, shocked. He actually had a shield. Smirking, he declared this battlefield perfect. Making deals with dirty bug parasites, not a chance. Lee panicked, begging for an exit strategy, but Hale interrupted, demanding they just sacrifice Heyman as monster bait. Seeing the endless swarm of nightmare zombie centipedes, Kangman utterly broke down and tragically ended it all. Tossing Hamon to the wolves meant survival. Hajin pleaded for sanity, but Hale was completely hysterical. 2 lives were already wiped out and she refused to lose more. Hajin swiftly kicked the sharp blade right out of her shaking hands. Knocking her cold, Hajin felt her deep despair. Still, drawing steel on your own squad was an absolute crime. Hamon asked why just as Lee launched a sneak attack siding with Hail. Hajin barely blocked it brutally, taking Lee down despite taking a nasty stab wound himself. This chaotic circus was useless. He begged for reason, but the whole squad wanted to toss Heyman to his doom. Hajin's sweat dropped, realizing selling out a Monarch's hunter meant literal treason. But to this terrified crew, treason beat becoming monster chow. Letting out a heavy sigh, Heyman chose to surrender himself. Bickering with idiots would only get them all butchered. Hajin completely freaked out, but Hamon bravely marched off to end this nightmare. Hajin desperately grabbed him, dreading the epic scolding Yoon would give if Hamon actually died. Our main character suddenly realized he had to clear his heavy conscience this exact second. He blurted out that he recently bumped into the Platinum Monarch. Before Hajin could process it, Hamon hilariously sprinted away. Still dumbfounded, he unleashed the legendary Master of 10,000 Swords against the bug swarm. Hilariously amidst the epic slashes, those sneaky parasites totally swiped Hamon's backpack. Without his main weapon, his battle power vanished. Instantly, gross zombie hands started grabbing him from all sides. Cornered and desperate, Hamon prayed to the Martial King for a miracle. Plot twist: the spirit currently possessing his body was the nerdy alchemist, not the ultimate fighter. It really felt like a massive graveyard trip was incoming. He had just aggressively leveled up his dynamite assimilation to rank 2 after all. Back then, the system handed Hamon a weird bonus skill. Already loaded with deadly gear, he expected absolute garbage from this support class alchemist. Ding, he gained the weird mini-lab skill. For early humanity, real researchers literally used their own bodies as test tubes. They swallowed random junk to see if they'd survive or instantly die. The alchemist's bizarre mini-lab skill basically fast-tracked this insane trial-and-error stomach science. Instantly, Hamon's enhanced vision exposed the disgusting true rank 2 forms of these mutant parasites. Like an absolute madman, he shoved a squirming bug into his mouth. It tasted like pure garbage, but Minilab rapidly analyzed the toxic fungus directly inside his guts. Boom. Instant immunity. He became a walking vaccine. In a hilarious reverse Uno move, he started aggressively biting the bugs, back infecting them with his toxic antibodies. The absurd bite tactic worked perfectly. It threw the bug horde into pure hilarious chaos amidst the terrifying zombie ocean. Suddenly, Heyman locked eyes with the boss, a weird dude waving a giant flag. Sadly, empty-handed Heyman couldn't even scratch this weakened boss from that far away. Whoosh! Out of absolutely nowhere, our main character snatched the flying daggers that Hajin desperately chucked at him. Smirking, he teased Hajin for actually caring, but Hajin screamed at him to rush the boss, popping his ultimate sequential time observation skill before his mana ran dry. Whoa, the world suddenly warped into extreme slow motion. Riding Hajin's insane time buff, Hamon unleashed the legendary Master of 10,000 Swords. However, using a tiny dagger instead of a greatsword meant the legendary attack's damage was awkwardly pathetic. Hajin's time-bending mana was ticking down fast. Hamon had just a split second left to ruthlessly execute the enemy commander. Gulp. Only a single solitary dagger remained in his hand. Even spamming his ultimate attack wouldn't close the gap to that mocking flag bearer. If normal time resumed, now our hero was literal dead meat. Miraculously, Hyel and the cowardly hunters wildly charged in furiously, carving a bloody path forward. Haemon's jaw completely dropped. These shameless cowards had literally been playing possum on the floor this entire time. She screamed a frantic apology for the earlier betrayal, urging him forward. Right then, Hajin hit his absolute magic limit, totally shattering the slow-motion domain. Fired up by the team's random bravery, Hamon activated his own signature skill. Leaping over his allies, he fiercely slashed with the tiny dagger, violently opening a path. Thud, the zombie wall crumbled. As our hero finally clashed with the flag boss, a completely drained Hajin dramatically hit the dirt, gasping for air. The crazy bastard actually won. Hamon totally collapsed next to him, laughing in pure relief after mentally accepting his own death 5 minutes ago. He breathlessly praised the mysterious constellations above. As the squad rushed to awkwardly coddle perfectly fine, Hamon Hajin smiled. He suddenly recalled Yoon's golden advice: the most legendary hunters possess beautifully simple, empty heads. Those snobby constellations overthink morals way too much. Yoon always dreamed of a loyal meathead subordinate who just followed commands without secretly plotting anything. When Hajin previously offered his total loyalty, Yoon bluntly rejected him for being way too much of a calculating smart aleck. To conquer this hellish tower, you can't sweat the small stuff. You basically need zero hesitation, flawless execution, and a compass pointed straight at justice. Chuckling, Hajin had asked if she just wanted a ridiculously lucky idiot. Yoon had totally agreed. A top-tier hunter is just delightfully simple and absurdly lucky. Hamon lacked those overpowered cheat skills, practically guaranteeing he'd be a garbage hunter. Yet the girl knew this roach-like dude would stubbornly survive forever. Looking back, he wondered if Yoon meant a weirdo exactly like Hamon. Hitting floor 10, the crew dragged their tired feet back to the watch infirmary. Hamon asked if Jeomuk was the crazy master who trained Hajing. She nodded proudly, bragging about scoring a legit constellation's blessing too. Makes total sense. She solo carried the whole fight, wrecking nasty parasites while babysitting their wounded. Hajing confessed, her powers are totally mood-based. That emotional roller coaster was exactly why she joined the party so damn late. Nodding, Hamon asked if they actually found the juicy clues. Hajing confirmed the undead meat sacks reeked of the Black Apparition constellation's nasty energy. The massive plot twist: she didn't control those undead armies alone. Some inside trader at the weapons forge was secretly teaming up with the apparition. Hamon gasped. No wonder they tried sabotaging the workshop to dethrone Yoon. Sitting on the Lord's throne is already a giant death trap. Naturally, playing her loyal hunter was just as suicidal. Hamon nervously asked about the true identity of this infamous Black Apparition constellation. This legendary being ascended during the Blue-White War, the Golden Age of Mages. Having survived that brutal crusade, Hamon totally understood holding a massive grudge against Yoon. But why strike now? Ascended beings aren't living stars. They lose their memories and personality, basically turning into empty floating ghosts. They just blindly cosplay their past mortal ideals, tossing out random blessings like a broken gacha machine without any real purpose. Suddenly, Hamon finally grasped the confusing cryptic whispers of that mysterious starlight. The Black Apparition was fully ascended. Targeting Yoon now made zero logical sense. Hamon scratched his head, completely lost by this weird logic. Hajing snapped that finding the sneaky traitor was priority number 1, meaning a terrifying chat with Jeomuk was absolutely required. Hamon internally panicked. If Jeomuk allied with the apparition, everything clicked perfectly. Suddenly, Hajing aggressively shushed him. Accusing a powerhouse without hard evidence was pure suicide. The main character grumbled bitterly. This girl did absolutely nothing except nag. Then, Lee suddenly appeared. Jeomuk was calling for them with creepy timing. But plot twist, he exclusively wanted Hamon, leaving Hajing utterly baffled. Amon strutted off laughing like a maniac. He knew Hajing would be absolutely terrified of facing Jeomuk anyway. Facing a literal constellation was way above her pay grade anyway. After successfully trolling Hajing, our smug main character casually strolled out of the tent. Hajing frantically warned him to show extreme respect to the star. Walking over, Hamon sarcastically asked Lee how betraying his own teammate felt. Sweating bullets, Lee awkwardly bowed, stuttering out an apology and thanking Amon for the rescue. The main character scoffed at the cheap gratitude. As long as he breathed, he would never forget those backstabbing cowards trying to sell him out. Shivering, Lee silently guided him straight into Jeomuk's intimidating presence. The powerful mage smirked, mentioning he heard Hamon actually saved his useless hunters. Amon shrugged. They tried offering him as bait, so he just slaughtered the zombie first. Jeomuk chuckled in understanding, admitting his squad acted like total noobs but still offered thanks. Hamon casually asked if those backstabbers would actually face any brutal punishment. Jeomuk laughed darkly. Nobody survives as a hunter by sweating the small stuff. Out here, even almighty constellations can drop dead for absolutely zero reason. You must chill out and move forward with graceful forgiveness. Or Geomuk offered with a wicked grin he could mercilessly sell them out if Haemon preferred. Hamon thought that revenge sounded way too cheap. So Geomuk suddenly offered to grant him one epic wish. Playing it cool, our hero casually saved it for later. Shrugging, Geomuk casually shifted the topic, dropping heavy hints about a brewing rebellion inside Yoon's domain. He discovered filthy traitors were hiding right inside the Lord's own royal palace. A shadowy snake tracking the Platinum Monarch's every single step. They were plotting a massive coup bribed by an external force to brutally overthrow the Lord and steal her throne. Amon sweated, shocked he knew all this. But Geomuk remained totally neutral to the rebels' offer. This lazy mage just wanted to peacefully chill inside his tower forever. He refused to defend the monarch but wouldn't betray her either. Yet this crazy genius was dangerously close to exposing the real mastermind pulling the strings. If some annoying dead constellation dared to poke its nose into his affairs, he definitely wouldn't stay quiet. Gulping, Hamon asked if he had any suspects. Geomuk flashed a terrifying smile, flatly accusing Hamon of being the grand traitor himself. Honestly, it was the only logical answer. Hamon had hoarded insane cosmic aggro, Ripple's blessing the black apparition, and now Geomuk were all stalking him, while this crazy newbie kept casually chatting up other weird celestial stars. Our hero sweated buckets. The optics looked incredibly sus, but he definitely wasn't the traitor. Smiling darkly, Geomuk demanded the exact names of his constellation, sugar daddies. Hamon instantly panicked as the room's chill atmosphere dropped to absolute zero. Geomuk relentlessly pressured him violently, trying to squeeze out those star names. This overwhelming aura was the terrifying raw power of a true constellation up close. The crushing gravity kept multiplying. Hamon gasped for air, genuinely terrified he would tragically suffocate to death right there. Suddenly, the sadistic mage looked incredibly satisfied. Meanwhile, poor Hamon was utterly confused, drowning under a ridiculous blinding flood of system notifications. His brain completely blue-screened, mostly because Geomuk's aura was violently crushing him. Three celestial patrons stood as his ultimate safety net. Our hero smirked, declaring his destiny to become a legend. Seeing that arrogant grin, Geomuk knew simple interrogation was completely useless here. Bam! Hamon went flying from sheer spiritual aura alone. Was this overwhelming aura, truly, the peak of a tower climber? Suffocating killing intent paralyzed his body. One touch from this monster meant instant brutal death. However, our main character refused to just roll over and die. Catching the fist, Hamon stood his ground. Geomuk smirked at his guts, mocking his reliance on celestial sponsors. Hamon was clueless. Post-apocalypse humanity ditched traditional gods entirely, seeking salvation strictly through the Church of Eternity. Honestly, our illiterate hero barely understood their fancy divine doctrines anyway. He worshipped the structure and treated star beings as angels. Soon those zealots would discover why the summit remained unconquered. Still, the mystery fueled their blind faith, elevating this deadly monolith into an absolute holy sanctuary. If someone claimed the absolute summit that divine holy illusion would instantly shatter, Hamon found their world restoration logic completely absurd. It was nothing but pure, desperate copium for broken survivors. Geomuk posed a terrifying philosophical question. Imagine conquering the summit only to find absolute hollow emptiness. That truth would break humanity. They chose comfortable ignorance over reality, completely abandoning the endless climb. Then Yunu appeared, chosen as the supreme sovereign. Suspicious Geomuk interrogated him about the celestial whispers. Were those sponsors cowards or ambitious climbers? What fake paradise were they dangling to manipulate him? Crack-searing agony exploded, as his bones nearly snapped under that monstrous grip. Channeling the martial king, he launched a desperate counterattack, but Geomuk just yawned at his pathetic effort. Summoning the ultimate Blademaster ability, he materialized steel from thin air. The sudden strike forced Geomuk back. How did he sense the concealed weapon? Simple. The kid knew he was facing the legendary armory boss. A blacksmith grandmaster is never unarmed. This deadly test was quickly escalating far beyond a simple joke. Taunted to beg his stars for power, our boy doubled down, manifesting deadly twin daggers with fierce resolve. A flawless strike. Nope, Geomuk mocked his naive trickery, easily reading the amateur attempt to disarm him. Such childish combat tricks were utterly useless against a seasoned veteran. Amon finally noticed the invisible armor. Meanwhile, Geomuk marveled at the boy's bizarre, instantly shattering temporary weapons. Boom. A casual fist sent Hamon crashing down. With such overpowered skills, why borrow cheap steel anyway? A brutal beatdown ensued. Was this stubborn kid destroying his own physique, just out of pure, reckless stupidity? Go beyond your limits. Bruised and bleeding, the rookie realized the terrifying mountain-like gap in their raw power. Just pray to your precious star patrons before I crush you. Death was not an option today. Smirking, the old master patiently waited for the kid's ultimate desperate trump card. The fundamental essence of combat, the absolute mastery of every single legendary blade ever forged, Beneath the fancy metal, every instrument of slaughter shared one single deadly philosophy. Turning his own flesh into the ultimate weapon, his explosive human blade strike completely obliterated the massive concrete ceiling. Tanking the shockwave, the master laughed at his aching bones. Sadly, the recoil completely shattered our hero's arm. Pulling a legendary Rock Lee, he literally passed out while standing. The brutal evaluation was finally over. Days later, his friendly wake-up call arrived as a brutal punch to the face. Choking a patient to restore breathing, complete medical madness. Mon woke up, terrified, absolutely confused by this unhinged revival method. The old man complained about his absurd vitality while our main character whined about Hajin uselessly standing by. Weak or not, he carried the title of the Sovereign's Hunter, but with those pathetic skills, death was completely inevitable. To avoid early death, he got instantly drafted into a hellish training arc at the armory. Jaws dropped. In just 6 months, this grumpy grandpa promised to forge him into a literal god-slaying monster. Hajin nervously argued chain of command protocols, though admitting a super-buffed ally was definitely a massive win for Yunu. Upgrading a weak pawn made sense. But wait, did not this guy just call him a traitor? That brutal beatdown was simply a crazy loyalty test. Sensing his hidden potential mid-fight, the master realized executing him was a huge waste. Why destroy the exact golden ticket needed to conquer the summit? Hajin stood paralyzed. Even the mighty Geomok had completely lost his mind. The Platinum Monarch possessed a relentless obsession with conquering the tower, but the city regressing to the church era, that triggered his ultimate suspicion. Perhaps she surrendered, instead of fighting for true peace. But logically, she would never hire a total lunatic like Haman, if that were the case. The tower desperately craved absolute maniacs right now, and Yun needed to get that through her head. Oman practically yelled, asking if beating someone to a pulp was justified. Juk knew he was innocent, but honestly, pounding him was just too fun. Moving forward, Haman's battles weren't just for survival. The tower itself would become his judge, testing his worthiness to ascend to the absolute peak. He wouldn't just face parasites, but almighty constellations and ruthless hunters. Haman finally understood. Countless enemies already wanted his head on a platter. Escaping Geomok's wrath was just the tutorial phase of this nightmare, but he just smirked. Staring the Grim Reaper in the eyes was basically his daily routine at this point. To rewrite his trash destiny, he had to conquer the tower. Juk just chuckled wickedly. No way was he letting his favorite toy leave yet. Hajin's jaw hit the floor. This rookie somehow scored favors from 2 absolute legends. 1 week passed. Haman finally healed up, though Geomok roasted him for looking like a squashed lizard. The master ordered him to follow, promising a mind-blowing destination. They stepped into an eerie, perfectly symmetrical space. Welcome to the Mirror Room, a mystical dimension where you literally meet your alternate self. This domain contained infinite parallel dimensions branching off from every life-altering choice you made. Step inside, and you could face your multiversal twin or even snatch legendary loot from their timeline. No cheap illusions here. It was terrifyingly real. Haman stood frozen. Geomok last opened this door during the brutal civil war, witnessing a timeline erasing the monarch. In that fractured timeline, he witnessed the apocalyptic victory of the Church of Eternity. Dragging Yun along, he fought tooth and nail to shatter that dark destiny. He hadn't dared to open this cursed room since. Was his choice correct? He never breathed a word to a living soul. Meanwhile, the massive conspiracy hunting the Platinum Monarch was accelerating rapidly. Even the divine constellations were shifting their cosmic pieces, heavily targeting Haman's explosive debut. Thus, Geomok deemed this twisted room superior to regular training. With a purely psychotic grin, he kicked Hmon straight inside, wishing him terrible luck. Haman scrambled to his feet, completely dizzy. He whipped his head around, only to realize he was totally abandoned. The bizarre magical glyphs glowing beneath him definitely weren't there 5 seconds ago. He was casually dumped into an alternate reality like yesterday's trash. Outside, the spectators grabbed their popcorn, wondering which variant would appear. The legendary Martial King had previously braved this room, and honestly, it was a total walk in the park. But the alchemist and mage exchanged nervous glances. With Haman's horrible luck, this could end in absolute disaster. Slowly, the dimensional veil sealed shut. Stepping backward meant tumbling into a totally random reality. Our boy had to desperately figure out the cheat code back to his own world. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Haman's jaw dropped as an absolute clone of himself casually strolled inside. While our main character stood there completely baffled, the newcomer arrogantly declared himself as the one and only Hmon. This variant was a total weapon workshop nerd, earning him the nickname Weapon Guy. Shockingly, his mana core pumped the exact same platinum energy, only this version awakened a third-class reinforcement trait. A cheat skill built perfectly for pure street brawling. His brawler aura gave off massive Martial King vibes. With that specific energy flow, he was guaranteed to be a hardcore weapon workshop disciple. The sync rate was completely off the charts. Armand asked if he served the Lord, and the doppelganger proudly nodded. Following a parallel script, this guy grinded at the workshop specifically because his baseline stats were absolute garbage. He worshipped Geomach, blindly trashing Yoon as a tyrant, while praising his master as a benevolent deity. A true man only needs a blade to conquer the tower, he yelled, completely dismissing any complex magic circuit theory. Watching from the outside, the martial king physically cringed. The second-hand embarrassment was inflicting lethal psychic damage. Technically, it was a parallel dimension, not his actual past. But the resemblance was terrifyingly uncanny. The alchemist howled with laughter as the martial king practically melted. We all have cringe phases. But Alt-Han was a massive Chunabu edgelord with 0 IQ. Martial King instantly rage-quit the spectator room, totally humiliated while the others wheezed. Meanwhile, Edgelord Han bragged that only weapon nerds could climb the tower. He arrogantly claimed that mages and alchemists were literally just living health potions for swordsmen. Our main character finally snapped. He roared at his variant to shut up, absolutely disgusted by his own face, spewing such toxic garbage. The variant scoffed, assuming our hero was completely clueless about Yoon's twisted and unbelievably shallow personality. Bam! Our protagonist ruthlessly decked his clone in the jaw. Channeling the martial king's brutal teachings, he unleashed a beautifully flawless combo. The clone staggered back, screaming about why his martial arts were so godly. Little did he know, our Haman completely skipped the weapon workshop tutorial. The weapon workshop freaks had bodies literally forged for the blade. They hammered human flesh into living steel. Unlike our boy Haman, this guy didn't just smash his sword into pieces, he treated his blade like a sacred treasure. Haman could seriously learn a thing or two. His alternate self just laughed at his shattered sword. Meanwhile, Haman's mana circuit was dangerously overheating. Amon hated this smug doppelganger. But the guy surprisingly helped. With a cheeky good luck, he launched an air punch that instantly floored our hero. Taking those brutal hits actually taught Haman how to master his brute force before leaving. Master Geo tossing him into this crazy mirror dimension finally made sense. Who was the next boss fight? Stepping through, he immediately bumped into a manic alchemist, screaming at him to run. The dude was totally unhinged, but Haman casually offered to lend a hand anyway. Hours passed, blurring through boring empty rooms. Besides Sword Bro and Crazy Pots, nobody else was worth his screen time. But with every step, his synchronization rate was skyrocketing. How long was this endless grinding going to take? Suddenly, a lethal presence grabbed our hero from the shadows. A toxic aura choked the air. It was a poison-wielding assassin, way scarier than the sword nut. This wasn't his clone. She viciously barked at him to stay quiet. Was this some rogue traitor sent here to assassinate him? That logic was totally flawed. Time to beat her up and ask questions later. But his absolute skills misfired. His mana circuit went completely dead. Her toxic aura had paralyzed his entire system. Then he spotted the metallic circuit choker on her neck. Plot twist, this deadly waifu was actually another Hmon. Why the heck was his alternate self a girl? Before he could panic, she launched a totally lethal strike. She was out for pure blood. Her ruthless movements perfectly mirrored those brutal back-alley street fights. It clicked. She was the timeline where he crawled from the gutters and became the spider's loyal lapdog. One wrong choice, and that could have been his fate. But seriously, a gender-bender timeline was just too unfair. The martial king, the alchemist, the mage, nobody had ever seen this variant. Her glitchy appearance meant the system was definitely corrupted. The panicked alchemist interrogated the mage. The verdict: she was the one version Himon absolutely needed to avoid. She was the second entity to ascend to constellation status. The alchemist was mind-blown, thinking she was permanently dormant. She was the heaven-defying phantom. Her legendary name was Mayori. Her vicious combat style screamed of the infamous Serpent Nest Syndicate. He demanded to know if she joined the snakes, but got cold silence. Asking about the spared elder only earned him another deadly glare. She was just going to keep attacking him with pure, unadulterated malice. Mayori smirked at his pathetic struggles without abilities. When Homon kept yelling, she coldly threatened to blast his wrist to ash. Sharing the same brain cell meant she had perfectly countered all his ultimate moves. But Mayori was sweating too. She never expected his crazy poison resistance. Homon smugly praised his master's hellish vitality training. She let out a frustrated sigh, realizing her toxic tricks were basically useless now. She finally surrendering, Mayori ordered him to sit, confirming her serpent nest ties. But Hamon kept his guard raised to the max. She asked if his timeline made him a hunter. When he nodded, Hamon demanded why this alternate universe waifu wanted him dead. Mayori scoffed, declaring she would slaughter any of Yun's lapdogs for some light target practice. In her shattered timeline, she had chosen the path of ultimate betrayal. Amon asked why she turned rogue, but Mayori furiously questioned his blind loyalty to Yoon. Amon's casual brag about dating Yoon left. Mayuri totally paralyzed in shock. She hesitated to drop the massive truth bomb, but destiny forced her hand. Tearing down his illusions, the revelation hit Haman like a truck, but he immediately rejected the insane lore drop, ignoring Mayuri's desperate warnings. Our boy couldn't process it. How could a parasite control mana circuits when they literally drain the host's core dry? Mayuri snapped back, asking if he had ever actually seen the monarch's true circuit. The answer was no, because parasites hide their true nature. Haman stubbornly argued that anyone could just hide their glowing circuits under a thick hoodie. She wasn't about to waste breath on this stubborn idiot. Our hero sarcastically asked if the serpent nest offered degrees in professional gaslighting. With a chilling smirk, she declared the spider taught her everything, turning her into its deadliest limb. Moan had never witnessed the true spider's face, yet Mayuri still willingly became its pawn. She crumpled to the bloody earth right after slaughtering the elder. The executioner doll and the monarch cornered her, but at death's door, that mysterious spider snatched her from the reaper. Haman scoffed. If the Yun parasite had actually tried to kill him, he would have easily found a reason to join the rebellion. Betrayal was a concept he fully grasped, but in his reality, Yun was perfectly sweet, leaving our hero absolutely zero room to complain. Mayuri scoffed at his innocent mindset. Even as the monarch's loyal hound, she held a soft spot for him, hinting at the divine rebellion. The ultimate standoff was here, kill or be killed. His true stance toward the mighty monarch would be decided right now. As Mayuri turned her back to vanish, Haman demanded answers. She just smirked, calling him an absolute fool who lacked basic survival instincts. The theatrical curtain simply rises and falls. Since their paths would never cross again, they skipped the tearful farewells entirely. Suddenly, an icy chill crept down the mage's spine. The oppressive seal had shattered, and the infamous Mayuri stepped into the light. Absolute terror gripped the ordinary humans. She was the legendary constellation who crushed the rebellion, slayed Yun, and conquered the entire city. They dubbed her the infamous White Spider, and honestly, that title was undeniably badass. The alchemist gasped at her terrifying progress. Our poor main character could never dream of pulling off such a monstrous feat. The martial king narrowed his eyes. Was she the same infamous traitor from his memories? The mage nodded grimly, confirming history was repeating itself. The king had always laughed off the revolution as a pathetic joke. Until this very moment, the rebels were nothing but a minor nuisance. But now, the triumphant constellation of the successful rebellion had awakened right before their trembling eyes. The winds of fate were spinning wildly out of control. Meanwhile, Haman stumbled upon Hajin, and Geomuk casually goofing off, just waiting for him. Our hero totally roasted the old man for hiding the exit route. In response, the geezer just burst into booming, unapologetic laughter. Geomuk smirked, asking for a status report. Haman sighed, admitting he nearly died countless times. But grudgingly, he confessed the brutal ordeal actually paid off. With that settled, Geomuk smoothly pivoted back to his deep conversation with the prideful Hajin. He suspected the traitor infiltrated the city's core, exactly like the weapons forge. Geomuk clearly sensed the mirrored room's energy, having faced his own doppelganger. A shocking realization struck Haman like lightning. Both the workshop phantom and Mayuri were actively plotting against Yun. Hiding right under the monarch's nose, a venomous snake was desperately trying to orchestrate her downfall. Geomuk brutally cut him off with deadly threats, calling him pathetic. Still, for saving those hunters, the entire workshop plus Lee and Heil owed him big time. Even the arrogant Hajin tossed him a rare compliment. Naturally, our guy's ego immediately inflated to the size of a blimp. Hajin fiercely snapped back. He only meant Haman was slightly better than a stray mutt. Yet, despite his pathetic weakness, standing beside the monarch was absolute divinity. But thanks to our hero's meddling, the mighty Geomuk officially declared himself Yun's steadfast ally. Hajin's jaw dropped at Geomuk's newfound respect for the kid. Meanwhile, Geomuk challenged Haman to prove his burning willpower, promising his constellation stars would amplify that very spirit. By securing a legendary constellation like Geomuk, the rebels' chances of victory absolutely plummeted to rock bottom. Though to be fair, Geomuk ruthlessly roasted Haman and laughed in his face the entire time. Later on, Yun showered him with gratitude for recruiting a constellation, his grand reward, another romantic date. Though honestly, it felt more like a terrifying hostage situation. She framed it as a sweet question, which definitely beat receiving a terrifying royal command. She proudly took charge of the itinerary, claiming she got genius dating advice from a highly trusted confidant. That so-called confidant, the murderous executioner doll, literally the most psychotic wingman ever. Haman seriously pitied Yun's utter lack of normal friends. She desperately wanted this outing to be perfect. Beneath her godly aura, she looked heartbreakingly lonely, constantly surrounded by venomous traitors plotting her doom. It was decided he would have to pull a fast one on the monarch to uncover the dark truth behind this divine rebellion. Yun pitched a classic dinner and a movie, and just like that, Haman was forcefully dragged into yet another romantic escapade. His awkward silence made her visibly anxious until he clumsily stuttered an agreement. She even upgraded his circuit with pure platinum, subtly hinting she wanted a sweet gift in return. Despite literally swimming in boundless wealth, there had to be something in this world her heart truly desired. Her eyes practically sparkled as she made her request. Haemon braced himself. She asked for a crab head. He blinked in utter confusion at such a random vintage seafood dish. But hold on, she did not want seafood. She wanted a literal severed head, specifically Kim Hate, an infamous spider assassin known in the underworld as Crab. In these grimy back alleys, Crab was the terrifying codename for ruthless black market flesh peddlers. The alchemy workshops were always hungry for fresh corpses. Underground syndicates craved human parts, so our hero dove straight into the dark web to hunt them down. Twisted foreign alchemists needed flesh for their forbidden experiments, slaughtering innocent civilians just to harvest and flip their organs. The pathetic thug he cornered knew absolutely nothing. Weeping and begging for his pathetic life, he whimpered as Haemon demanded Crab's exact location. A VIP client wanted that bastard's head, so he better sing before losing his own. But suddenly, the rope violently snapped, sending the screaming informant plunging to a gruesome death. Turns out these goons showed up just to put down the lady's dog. Nice matching outfits, exactly like Miori's. Serpent's Nest lackeys, Haemon smirked, asking if the alchemist was just bait. Spot on. They knew Yoon wanted those spider legs. Their genius plan: leave one dangling and watch our guy swallow the hook. Boom. Our main character stepped right into their trap just like the monarch did. They demanded he lure Yoon to Crab's hideout. But Haemon's counteroffer beat the absolute pulp out of them. Spare one and extract Crab's location himself. Meanwhile, Yoon just casually wondered, would her crazy attack dog actually survive this mess? The assassins panicked as their deadly poison completely failed. Haemon just laughed in their faces. Thanks to Miori, his Menob skill had already totally neutralized the toxins. One coward actually bolted. Before Haemon could chase him down, his knees suddenly hit the dirt. Guess poison is still poison. He absorbed too much and totally blacked out. When his eyes finally fluttered open, Yoon was right there watching him. Talk about a shock. She normally would have just waited, but apparently seeing a falling alchemist changed her royal mind. Haemon sweated over the escapee. But guess what? Yoon had casually intercepted the runaway and dumped him right on the floor. He patched our boy up a little. Plus, she effortlessly squeezed juicy intel out of the others, not just about Crab. Haemon awkwardly apologized for flopping. But Yoon waved off his dramatic guilt trip. Instead, she had a fancy new shopping list for him. Fetch these gifts and she would grant him one wish. Jackpot. The sheer thrill of a free wish totally hyped him up to seal the deal. No pressure, right? The Platinum Monarch casually handed over a deadly hit list featuring 5 lucky names: Crab Older, Sister Raccoon, Shining Anglerfish, and the Hitman. The creepy spider's legs that basically controlled the entire dark alleyways. His simple mission: wipe them all off the map, turn that terrifying spider into a completely toothless bug. 4 days later, Mon cornered Crab, fully prepared to claim his severed head. Crab pathetically begged, claiming they only targeted the monarch to save the city. He swore Hmon was just a pawn. Seriously, everyone spouts this exact same hero complex garbage. Kim frantically swore it was the truth. Yoon apparently wanted the terrifying power of the Eternity Church. Mon revved his weapon to just end him. But as Kim desperately begged, our guy paused. Did this insect know anything about the rebellion against the divinity? Kim sweated bullets. He admitted he snooped around but found absolutely zero clues, so the traitors fighting the monarch must hold the answers. Kim desperately blurted that the red light district madam knew the juicy details. Her secret catchphrase, grab the skies, a literal call to rebel. But with the monarch blocking them, Kim honestly thought they were just drunk. A noble actually committing treason against the absolute divinity. Total hilarious nonsense. Amon fully agreed, it sounded stupid. But Kim insisted that was exactly why she was hoarding a mountain of gold. Well, the madam was already on his hit list anyway. Perfect timing. Mon aggressively pushed the sniveling guy for intel on the remaining spider's legs. Kim practically cried, swearing on his life he would not dare lie with a blade to his neck. Suddenly, a system alert. Miori actually expressed satisfaction. Haemon was totally shook. He had never seen that. Even the other constellations gave a thumbs up, leaving him completely baffled. Amon bluntly ordered him to state his name. Trembling, the guy stuttered out Kim Hate. Amon casually fact-checked with his celestial constellations. They completely verified it. Even Miori, wait, did she have secret mafia ties to these back alleys? The mage constellation threw a total fit. Miori was lurking without revealing herself. Haemon realized his other celestial sponsors were totally gathered there too. If Miori was who Mon thought she was, the mage's exact counter. An overpowered hack that literally suspended other people's magical skills. Those snobby workshop mages stood zero chance against her. The king chimed in, asking if that crazy power murdered the Platinum Monarch. The alchemist shrugged off her interference. Honestly, she just seemed to hold way too much blackmail material on everyone. The mage practically screamed at Miori to stop being a coward. But hey, thanks to her drama, Mon scored some massive info dumps. He would fact-check all this celestial garbage later. Back to business, Haman demanded to know if Kim had ever seen the spider's real face. Kim nervously nodded. She always wore a mask, smelling weirdly sweet. The spider warned them, kill Yun, or they would all be slaughtered. Especially since the Platinum Monarch was a literal raging lunatic, she would gleefully murder everyone and walk away. Processing the lore drop, our guy actually thanked him. Kim let out a huge sigh of relief, thinking his cooperation just bought his survival. Psychoman revved the buzzsaw straight back to life. He completely ignored Kim's terrified swearing meltdown as the blade gleefully tore his head right off. Spare him, not a chance in hell. Haman absolutely refuses to let dirty black market organ traffickers keep their heads. Target number 2. The Madam. And with Miori's divine tracking, help finding her was a total breeze. Time for some first-hand treason lore, Haman aggressively questioned her. Seriously, how hard could plotting a simple break into the tower actually be? Plot twist. Even she had no clue what the actual rebellion was. Answers lay with the creepy spider or the Platinum Monarch. But Haman, he just tuned out Yayo's pathetic begging and ruthlessly swatted her into the afterlife. Still, a smart player always preps. His shiny new rare loot arrived, but hilariously, the promised magic belt literally had creepy ghost hands glued all over it. This ultra-rare accessory boasted an epic cheat skill, magically slashing any stored loot's weight perfectly in half. These phantom limbs were a super annoying monster variant. Humanity only discovered their terrifying existence after the apocalypse hit. Even elite hunters avoided these pests. Since the monsters hated the tower's holy light, these sneaky spirits would hilariously possess random items or unlucky humans just to sneak around. Amon glared, demanding if this sketchy merchant was scamming him. The guy sweated and frantically denied everything. The merchant bet on Haman's divine ripple blessing to exorcise the spook. Impressed by this absolute cheeky hustle, our main character sighed and accepted the haunted junk anyway. But plotting a divine starlight cleanse completely failed. This stubborn phantom clung on like superglue. Fortunately, the spirit possessed zero combat power. Yet Haman aggressively cringed, feeling like he was holding a squishy cursed bug. Turns out, the accessory's previous unlucky owner got possessed only to be mercilessly sliced into ribbons by a passing knight. Exorcism should be easy, but this pest was oddly resilient. He begged his celestial sponsors for help. Unsurprisingly, the chaotic constellation Miori absolutely loved this terrifyingly risky gamble, grinning like an absolute maniac. If that creepy doll spotted him, a bloody death match was totally guaranteed. Shrugging off the mortal danger for sweet loot, he bravely equipped it. Homon even ruthlessly bullied the merchant into a massive haunted discount. Shocked by actually receiving premium currency, the greedy vendor happily promised to return later for his remaining shiny coins. The hot-headed mage raged over Miori, forcing this cursed garbage on him. He totally wanted to wreck her, but tragically, their elemental magic compatibility was absolute trash. He couldn't scratch her. Suddenly, the almighty Martial King recalled his totally overpowered skill-canceling cheat code. Defeated our grumpy mage, settled for an angry shouting match. He desperately needed to decode her absolutely insane, chaotic decision-making process. This all happened before Haman bumped into that trash panda, the raccoon. With 3 targets remaining, our hero was speedrunning missions to secure his wish from Yoon. Mid-stroll, some overly friendly creep enthusiastically blocked his path. Before Mon could blink, he was totally ambushed in a grimy dead-end alley. Classic protagonist trap, smirking the stalker noted our hero's busy murder schedule. Unamused Haman flat-out demanded if this clown was the infamous raccoon and why he was hunting him. The villain coldly claimed he lacked personal grudges. Skipping the villain monologue, he shockingly tossed out a sinister job offer instead. A tempting deal, agreeing meant instantly leveling up to elite spider leg status, totally hijacking the insect boss's original master plan. Since the boss spider actively wanted his head, this pitch was hilariously absurd. Yet the raccoon promised astronomical promotions if their underground rebellion actually miraculously succeeded. He even dangled the legendary title of Grand Master of the Armory Workshop. The realization hit him like a truck. That explained their brutal manhunt for Gaio, who desperately wanted to quit that toxic workplace. A magical contract with Yun chained Gaio to his annoying desk job. However, if she tragically perished, he'd be totally free to conquer the mighty tower. This hidden contract lore was completely new. Mon briefly entertained the deliciously treacherous idea of switching teams just for that juicy, shiny mission reward. Sure, epic loot sounded magnificent, and the trash panda's pitch wasn't half bad, but our stubborn MC absolutely despised getting death threats packaged with job interviews. So Hmon happily chose violence, immediately throwing hands with every single goon. The raccoon whined, comically offended that the hero completely skipped his negotiations. The thugs launched lethal strikes, but a sudden plot twist completely blindsided Haman. His attackers were workshop insiders. Hadn't the old geezer sworn to exterminate all internal rats? Annoyed, the raccoon barked at his useless minions to execute Haemon faster. Disastrously, Haemon couldn't enchant his blade with Ripple's divine aura. That cursed raccoon smoke carried an incredibly nasty magic-canceling debuff. The villain totally countered his celestial cheats, blinding the gods with toxic fog. Cold sweat dropped as our hero feared his ultimate skills jamming. Despite the massive lag, he heroically dragged the almighty Martial King's avatar into the chaotic brawl. Did his anti-magic system crash against a god? Brushing off panic, he spectacularly unleashed the 10,000 Swordsmaster's supreme combat art. Sweeping the absolute trash aside, a shocking face appeared. Lee. He was supposed to be Geomach's loyal bro, yet here he stood as a filthy traitor. Furious that his foolproof smoke glitched out the trash, Panda swore to personally obliterate our main character. Glaring at the villain's gleaming platinum prosthetic eye, Haemon realized this was an elite Lord's Hunter. This beast wasn't some basic bug underling. Dropping his guard meant instant death. Suddenly, the defeated goons completely ignored death, springing up to viciously impale Haemon's leg. He definitely landed fatal headshots, but these losers resurrected as terrifying zombies. The mocking raccoon happily commanded his creepy, newly minted undead hound army. A magically charged throwing dagger brutally sniped Han. Instantly, his vision glitched and his lungs burned. It was a horrifying, sensory-stealing cheat curse. Dodging rotting zombies blind was basically impossible. Dark Souls difficulty. This trash panda was a master curse user. One bad hit and it was a total game over. Armed with a tiny dagger, his ultimate 10,000 Swordsmaster skill was stubbornly on cooldown. Fighting totally blind just meant dying incredibly tired. Capitalizing on the stun, the raccoon viciously backstabbed him with another cursed blade. Trapped in absolute pitch-black darkness, Haemon genuinely thought his epic Manhwa run was facing a brutal, tragic finale. Ding, a system alert popped up, reminding him of a hidden trump card. For the very first time, Haemon synced his soul with Mayuri. Despite his absolute shock, he surrendered to his combat instincts and totally trusted her. He blitzed the trash panda, catching the guy completely flat-footed. Those cursed daggers were supposed to steal all 5 senses, leaving Haemon practically dead. The villain totally panicked, wondering how this rookie was still perfectly aware. If the curse was completely busted, the raccoon was forced to unleash a super annoying hidden skill. Haemon violently smashed the magic circuit on his eye. Instant vision restoration. Breaking that exact spot instantly canceled the enemy's overpowered technique. Experiencing Mayuri's spiritual possession was absolutely wild. Her terrifying vibe was totally different from the old Martial King's aura. He flawlessly mimicked the legendary snake assassin's footwork. The cornered raccoon threw a massive tantrum, screaming that his epic villain arc couldn't end here. Our hero demanded to know why a top-tier hunter became a creepy spider lackey. The bad guy spilled the tea. The monarch was plotting a divine rebellion. Haemon questioned why that was such a massive red flag. Turns out, Yoon basically wanted to delete humanity, and fighting the ultimate gods was the only insane gamble left. The moment he foolishly snooped around, Yoon tossed the guy straight into a lethal meat grinder. He absolutely would have perished if that creepy spider hadn't intervened. It finally clicked, for Haemon Yoon was silencing anyone who uncovered her master plan. That explained the ridiculously awful survival rate of the Lord's elite hunters. The raccoon desperately played the "we are not so different" card, offering a golden ticket to ditch Yoon. He actually thought a little villain monologue would win Haemon over. Our hero quickly pinged the cosmic constellations to fact-check this loser's desperate story. Right on cue, Mayuri materialized with a delightfully wicked smirk. The Platinum Monarch remained fiercely loyal, but the incredibly thick plot was definitely brewing something suspicious. Time to interrogate the Monarch face-to-face. The raccoon completely freaked out at that crazy idea, screaming that the boss would literally grind them into meat paste. Haemon just coldly told him to zip it, since his villain arc was cancelled anyway. But right before the final strike, the eerie doll suddenly crashed the party. She sighed, noticing he was going complete try-hard mode again. Haemon just shrugged smoothly, claiming he was only following her dramatic boss's unhinged orders. She literally dumped her divine constellation status, rushing back just to babysit Yoon and prevent an apocalyptic disaster. Yoon desperately wanted to cross the forbidden line, happily using Haemon as her personal landmine detector. Plot twist: the doll wasn't actually a loyal fan of the monarch. She only wanted to strictly supervise the troublemaker. Haemon heavily sighed. This entire toxic dynamic was honestly just pitiful. Zero hesitation later, he casually deleted the raccoon from existence. It truly felt like the entire universe was aggressively plotting against her, doubting every single move. Yoon's beautifully unhinged recklessness finally made perfect sense. He politely asked the doll to keep playing the ultimate gatekeeper, promising to fully respect her boundaries. But somebody desperately needed to shatter those rules for humanity's sake, and Haemon would absolutely smash through them his own way. The creepy doll fiercely warned him against any stupid blunders. If he accidentally wiped out the wrong VIP, his head would instantly be sent into orbit. Meanwhile, the flashy mage strutted back to the human squad, bragging about throwing hands the exact millisecond he spotted the enemy. He fully acknowledged Mayuri's intense burning grudge and just embraced the chaos. She absolutely despised him but safely stopped after one punch because she wasn't an idiot. The grumpy Martial King was completely flabbergasted by the mage's rare praise. Still, that girl was a certified lunatic, basically a chaotic clone of the Platinum Monarch. The baffled king demanded to know why she assassinated Yoon. The mage casually laughed, explaining that Mayuri just violently despises those toxic personality types. The ghost lady clearly wanted to remain completely incognito for now, but they somehow hammered out a solid, secretive alliance. Just like the boys, Mayuri pinky swore to boost Haemon up that dreaded tower. The king nervously sweated over another assassination attempt, but the mage confidently shut that paranoia down. Climbing that hellish tower absolutely required the monarch's presence, whether as a helpful ally or a disastrous enemy. It seriously looked like Mayuri finally realized her massive past-life blunders. Meanwhile, Haemon caught an ultra-rare emergency ping before he could even finish hoarding those creepy spider legs. After 6 months, the Lord summoned the workshop leaders. The massive tower was getting dangerously unstable. Wild rumors claimed she was dropping a crazy new premium event. Haemon nervously sweated, wondering if that intense lecture was the reason behind his sudden VIP invite. The moment they crossed paths, Yoon totally busted him for snooping into her top-secret god-slaying rebellion plans. Playing dumb was absolutely pointless now. He boldly confessed his burning curiosity about the master plan, and surprisingly, she totally vibed with his blunt honesty. Suddenly, Haemon spotted a battered dude on the floor, violently screaming death threats at her. He honestly thought the trash mob was dead when he delivered the package. Holy plot twist, it was the trash panda, but Yoon definitely didn't crush him since her skill tree completely lacked that brutal torture ability. It was actually a divine constellation's twisted blessing granted to the spider. This pathetic raccoon's real identity was Cho Jun-young. Guy was a massive criminal packing, severely wasted potential. Like Haemon's own tutorial, she offered a simple ultimatum: instantly perish, or become her hunting dog. Cho instantly abused his authority, relapsing into a villain. He even foolishly tried to uncover Yoon's fatal weakness. Since he possessed way too much forbidden lore, he arrogantly poked his nose into the legendary Divine Rebellion. But in the exact same guilty position, our main character kept his mouth completely shut. He just desperately wanted the cheat codes for climbing that brutal tower. Yoon flashed a devastating smirk, warning that learning the truth meant being permanently trapped with her forever. Mon was dying of curiosity, so she slipped him a mysterious envelope. A total cliché love letter for a secret rendezvous. The juicy rebellion gossip would wait until after the speech. Meanwhile, Hajin totally bumped into Hyel at the Grand Assembly. She tossed him a quick thanks for the assist, but complained the manual driving took forever. The cars totally drained their fuel and limped along on circuits. Definitely not the fast vibe. She seriously questioned why the Lord went through all that ridiculous drama just for a joyride. Classic flex. She used old-school authority to terrify the stubborn workshop geezers who completely underestimated her. Hyel worriedly asked about Hamon since he got utterly wrecked last time. Hajin just scoffed, telling her not to sweat it. That guy definitely did not play the noble sacrifice card. Regardless, he sweated over what crazy speech Yoon was plotting. Thankfully, Jemuk dispatched a hunter squad, though a boring lecture was prime real estate for an ambush. Boom, without warning, an armed mob crashed the party and rained absolute bullet hell on the hunters. The hunters absolutely panicked at the modern firepower, completely crumbling under the pressure. Hajin yelled at the cowards to chill before effortlessly slicing down 2 shooters with his trusty knives. They just needed to buy time for the Lord to escape while Hyel expertly pulled aggro. Suddenly, a creepy circular object began glowing brightly in the sky above. Bam! The massive blast sent everyone flying. He instantly realized that blinding starlight belonged to a terrifying legendary constellation. Hajin boldly charged the flaming figure, but his attacks completely bounced off. The only active constellations were Jemuk, the Prophet Tori, and Sizzy. It definitely was not Jemuk. That prophet was entirely loyal to the monarch. By process of elimination, only Tori or Sizzy remained. The useless hunters entirely lost their willpower to fight. For the first time ever, Hajin desperately prayed for Hamon to magically appear. Hyel bravely rushed in for backup. She boasted solid time series observation skills. Even if she was no Hamon, this girl packed a serious punch. Even with his epic aura fully flared, another massive detonation rocked the street. The sheer impact completely knocked Hajin out cold for a second. Even tough, Hale took damage. He desperately needed to guard the Lord, but massive blood loss left him incredibly weak. The goons completely swarmed the car to kidnap the Lord, but like an absolute boss, Hale blitzed in and wrecked half their squad. The creepy executioner doll also jumped into the fray to guard Yun. Seeing this insane backup, the mysterious figure totally chickened out and vanished. Pouting Hyel questioned her entire career choice as a hunter. Seeing her totally crushed, Yun stepped out and praised her massive carry during the chaotic brawl. The grumpy doll grumbled that this crazy ambush was supposed to happen during the grand speech, not randomly on the street. Yun brushed off the dust perfectly fine. Poor Hajin, however, was absolutely wrecked. The medic confirmed he was breathing, but fixing him up looked impossible. Yun magically bound his failing heart. It literally refused to stop beating until she officially gave the royal command. She instantly ordered Hyel to haul his unconscious body to the mystical tower, desperately needing an urgent chat with Gayam Mukfi. Meanwhile, lurking in the sketchy alleys right before the epic Monarch Rebellion speech, Haman was casually itching to claim another bounty head. They totally predicted her grand entrance. Haman gaped at actual modern firearms for the first time. Apparently her quirky grandpa was a massive hoarder of vintage weapons, fancy clothes, and antique furniture. Her grandpa was truly legendary. He managed a bustling orphanage, brilliantly keeping all those rebellious alley teens completely occupied. Hamon immediately realized that legendary old man was constantly on her mind. Sure, he occasionally ordered a hit, but he also bankrolled the hungry. He was an underworld saint until his shockingly brutal murder that fateful night. Our clueless main character had zero idea a granddaughter existed. The tragic backstory was pure cap to sound cooler, but she still desperately wanted Haman dead. You could totally call her a shadowy leg of the infamous Spider Syndicate. She bossily ordered him to tag along, leaving our guy utterly confused. Mid-stroll, ominous tremors rumbled from a massive distance. Shockingly, the epic shockwaves originated exactly where Yoon was supposed to deliver her grand speech. Hamon casually styled on the armed goons. After mopping the floor with them, the sassy girl reluctantly admitted he actually had some decent moves. But this chick was literally invincible. Her overwhelming power level completely eclipsed every single trash-tier hunter he had previously fought. Boom! The little kid magically aged up into a stunningly dangerous woman. Backed by a literal celestial star, she was a totally unprecedented nightmare for poor Haman. He was absolutely flabbergasted. Who expect to find a god-tier hunter casually lurking among the Spider Syndicate ranks? Her ridiculous star-powered shapeshifting made him look like a total noob. Hamon swung wildly, but she gracefully sidestepped everything, heavily mocking his embarrassingly slow turtle speed. Our hero absolutely raged. Her insanely fast transformation hacks were completely unfair. Hamon angrily demanded why she kept playfully trolling him instead of landing a fatal blow. Honestly, she just lacked any real motivation to try hard this fight. Her squad was already handling Yoon. Those booming fireworks. Definitely the assassination squad going crazy. With an Astra crashing the party, Yoon was practically a ghost already. Killing Hamon was completely irrelevant. Their real objective was solely to crush the Platinum Monarch. She grinned, totally convinced Haman was waving the white flag after hearing her epic villain monologue. Psych Haman smugly thanked her for letting him stall with absolute garbage talk. He brilliantly played her instantly, shattering the distraction to launch a completely feral, unhinged, beastly assault. Her jaw completely dropped. Out of absolute nowhere, a terrifyingly edgy, dark beast completely hijacked the body of Hamon. He casually sidesteps her barrage, landing a clean counter. She finally realizes his reflexes are way too sharp for a mindless puppet. Hamon literally bursts out laughing at her slow reaction time. She panics, completely baffled by this impossible, never-before-seen trick. Plot twist. He was faking the possession the whole time. Hamon recalled Miori's old lectures about the Platinum Monarch. Using those memories, he weaponized the creepy ghost stuck to his belt. Taming dark beasts usually required fancy gold collars, but our boy Hamon improvised. His pre-sword divine blessing worked as the perfect budget-friendly substitute collar. The martial king's aura forged his very flesh into steel, while Miori shielded his mind from the shadow beast's corruption. Radiant energy violently repelled the phantom, forcing a completely unhinged temporary fusion between the two. This crazy form had a terrible time limit, but his physical stats skyrocketed to insane levels. He was dual-wielding broken skills and loving every second of it. The catch pushed too hard, and his hand would literally turn to ash before the ghost completely hijacked his soul. It was a brutal race against the clock. Hammond unleashed an absolute beatdown, making the anonymous one sweat for her life. Suddenly, her neck stretched like a creepy snake villain and chomped his throat. But hey, she lost a whole arm for that cheap trick. Shrieking threats of bloody vengeance, the villain tactically retreated. With the target gone, Hamon's adrenaline crashed as reality slammed back into him. Honestly, a few more seconds of that clash and he would have actually died. He internally cried about his terrible luck, hoping the Platinum Monarch was safe. Meanwhile, the Spirit Mage had a panic attack over Hamon's reckless stunts. This wasn't even his first rodeo. The Ghost Alchemist nodded, exhausted by Hamon's habit of charging blindly into every single fight. The only upside, his synchronization and raw power were leveling up ridiculously fast. Still, he might actually get himself killed before hitting max level. That nasty bite was parasite venom, a cursed toxic blessing gifted straight from the terrifying constellation Horror itself. It completely exposed the terrifying truth both Horror and Black Apparition definitely crawled out of the irregular tower. Top-tier monsters descending was highly suspicious. Miori smirked, praising their deductive skills before jump-scaring the absolute daylight out of the spirit ghosts. The mage dramatically sighed at her dramatic entrance. Miori immediately called him out for doing the absolute most and flipping the tower's entire system. Jaws dropped across the room, but honestly, if the mage hadn't pulled that insane stunt, everyone's survival rate would have been a solid 0%. Miori scoffed, asking if the mage thought she held some petty grudge about not getting help back when she was breathing. Nope, she was just annoyed he meddled in unsolicited business. She died with absolutely zero regrets, even without fully clearing that stupid tower. She had given it her all. The mage fired back, calling out her poetic sugar-coated excuses, though he admitted it didn't change reality. Her reckless path practically guaranteed death. Yet those crazy suicidal efforts forged undeniable legendary achievements. The three spectral mentors were the exact same way, grinding past their absolute limits. Until very recently, the almighty tower was completely clueless about Haemon's existence. But the moment he unlocked that overpowered new skill, everything changed. Were actively glitching the tower's matrix. The constellations probably received elimination quests against them. The mage rolled his eyes, dismissing her wild conspiracy theories. Miori clicked her tongue, demanding to know when his little charade would finally end. The Martial King desperately played peacekeeper, awkwardly pivoting the conversation to ask if Miori officially joined the massive rebellion. The Platinum Monarch originally spearheaded that uprising. Why would Miori join after assassinating Yun Simple? This rebellion was an all-in gamble against the corrupt system. The twisted system definitely remembers everything. It is only the poor challengers who conveniently forget. Yun intentionally orchestrated her own death to lock in this one-way suicidal timeline. Miori kept the juicy secrets hidden. Rebellion talk could wait for later. Hamon's game-breaking skill was the ultimate wildcard that the rebellion desperately needed. It was the golden ticket for Yun's victory. The alchemist and Martial King stared blankly, brains completely fried by the lore dump. Meanwhile, our bruised idiots Haemon and Hajin successfully dragged themselves to the hospital. Hajin dramatically whined from his bed about massive blood loss and critical injuries. Hamon laughed right in his face. He had practically died 3 separate times today. But defensively, Hajin argued he soloed an insanely powerful enemy as a 1-star hunter. Hajin smugly boasted about surviving a literal constellation, but honestly, Hale and Yoon totally carried that boss fight to victory. Hale quit as Geomok's apprentice. The chaotic aftermath was full of tears and desperate begging. Hamon asked about the ruler's status. She was safe, but permanently hardwired to the tower system, completely locked away from any outside visitors. Geomok temporarily ditched the tower to act as the substitute lord. Hamon cracked up, joking about how hilarious it would be if that guy was secretly the main villain. Hajin got visibly triggered, defending the Lord's honorable title. Hamon then asked which constellation ambushed them, but clueless Hajin drew a complete blank. Hamon immediately roasted his supreme uselessness. The two battered idiots started bickering again, mostly because Hajin refused to give Hamon his well-deserved praise. Fast forward 1 week, Haemon healed up first and relentlessly flexed on Hajin, but his mana circuit still throbbed with a terrifying, lingering agony. Meanwhile, the monarch remained helplessly plugged into the tower, leaving the platinum seat completely empty for 7 straight days. Amon decided to seal away the circuit for now. Even so, he couldn't resist checking his system sync level. The numbers had spiked. Reaching the 3rd level alongside the Martial King, he realized fighting Anonymous would have been a cakewalk with these overpowered stats. Driven by pure gamer logic, our protagonist desperately needed to test out this custom-built stat spread in a real combat scenario. So he casually challenged the recovering Hajin to a duel. As a handicap, the injured hunter just needed to throw a single dagger. Assuming it would be a pathetic slow-motion attack, Hamon's cockiness skyrocketed, unleashing a barrage of shameless trash-talking taunts. Provoked Hajin's eyes narrowed. If the rookie wanted to dodge, he would deliver a deadly strike worthy of a true equal. Completely missing the honor of this gesture, Amon impatiently told him to hurry up. Whoosh! The blade flew, but Amon effortlessly snatched it midair. Instead of bragging, our ridiculous main character immediately whined about the lack of a proper countdown before the lethal sneak attack. Hajin had poured absolute murderous intent into that throw, yet Haemon caught it point blank, utterly bewildered by his own god-tier reflexes. His body had moved entirely on its own, a glorious perk of his stat burst. Suddenly, an imposing shadow crashed their little playtime session. Hajin's jaw practically hit the floor. He scrambled to attention as the mysterious newcomer grumbled about the chaotic state of the towering labyrinth. Amon blinked. Was this the legendary Master Hajin constantly hyped up? He had never seen his stoic friend sweating bullets like this. Respectfully, Hajin asked if the labyrinth inspection was finally complete. The master scoffed. He only reached floor 42 before a divine oracle descended, demanding his urgent return due to the city's sudden crisis. Hajin gasped in pure shock. The reigning monarch should have issued an emergency flare rather than a high-ranking oracle personally descending from above. The heavenly constellations shared this exact dread. Suddenly, it clicked for Haman. Yoon intentionally trapped herself inside to beg the divine beings for backup. After surviving a literal god's wrath, groveling to other celestial entities was just basic survival logic. The monster's piercing gaze snapped toward Haman. Our cocky hero immediately stammered out an introduction, sweating under that soul-crushing judgmental glare. Noting the kid wasn't dead yet, the veteran assumed he wasn't complete trash. They locked hands, though the old man's divine backing remained a total mystery. Bam! Instantly, our cocky protagonist was mercilessly slammed face-first into the dirt like wet tissue. Thus began the most brutal tutorial ever. 0 prep time allowed. Despite spamming every cheat skill he owned, Mon suffered a devastating, humiliating defeat. The grizzled veteran deemed him a total blockhead. Yet his pure, unyielding toughness was the exact raw material needed to forge a legendary hunter. With limited time on the surface, the master swore to violently hammer this pathetic rookie into a useful weapon. One wrong move meant instant death. 48 grueling hours passed, bringing Haman to death's door repeatedly, without scoring a single measly victory. This mentor was a literal raid boss. As Haman's vision finally faded to black, the terrifying master decided his brutal work was done here. The kid was finally combat ready. Yet Hajin gasped, noticing a tiny, impossible scratch across his invincible master's cheek. Covered in dirt and bursting out of oversized rags, Haman shamelessly demanded a better wardrobe. Meanwhile, Hajin remained paralyzed that his idol acknowledged this clown. The master would conquer the peak, ruthlessly training our hero until the true ruler's grand return. Before vanishing, he dropped a chilling truth bomb. Yun was a mastermind. She definitely foresaw this entire catastrophe and deliberately let it unfold. That exact manipulation nearly cost Hajin his life, yet the cynical master couldn't care less about the ruler, the guilds, or Haman's fancy circuit. To him, all pawns eventually die and get swapped out. Staring at his mentor's heavy burden, Hajin finally understood the old man's crippling alcohol addiction. The warning was clear: dodge the political crossfire or become another meaningless casualty in their game. If things went south, he was ordered to betray the Platinum Monarch immediately. Bowing deeply, Hajin wished his legendary teacher a safe ascent upward. The veteran smirked, noticing his disciple dodged the recruitment offer yet again. Suddenly, the creepy doll materialized, pinching her nose at the overwhelming stench. Hajin awkwardly blamed his master's heavy drinking for the tavern-like reek. Glancing down, her button eyes locked onto Haman's bruised, totally unconscious body. Hajin cautiously asked if she needed the sleeping idiot. She nodded grimly, insisting Hajin stay to hear this absolutely critical, fate-altering information. Groaning, our battered hero finally rebooted. The eerie executioner doll sighed in relief, while Haman flashed a charming grin, thanking her for the unexpected backup. Back during that chaotic alleyway clash, the Platinum Monarch clearly demonstrated that the pesky raccoon possessed absolute terrifying immortality. This fantasy world overflowed with dark secrets, and Haman realized nightfall brought endless chaos. But that was exactly the grim topic she came to discuss. For 10 brutal days, total anarchy swallowed half the metropolis, all triggered by Yoon's suspicious disappearance. Rumors screamed she was either assassinated or roaming as an undead. Meanwhile, a massive rebel strike had sparked a wave of devastating bloody retaliation. Despite packing heavy artillery and divine constellation, backing their grand epic rebellion was spectacularly crushed. By slicing off countless spider limbs, Haman had shattered the beast's territorial grip. Hilariously, Hajin remained completely clueless about his buddy's massive city-saving contribution. Doom loomed over the city. This spiraling chaos directly impacted the climbing hunters and deeply unsettled their divine sponsors. Realizing their safe zone was compromised, panicked hunters would inevitably abandon the raid and retreat entirely, just like the executioner doll had already done. The absolute monarch was simply biding his time. One perfect strike to squash this spider and end the madness. So this creepy doll dumped the spider hunting quest on Haman and Hajin. When our hero asked why she was slacking, she completely admitted she couldn't even find its lackeys. For some ridiculous reason, the spider's henchmen practically flocked to Haman. Basically, she was using our main character as top-tier bait. Identifying the true mastermind among the grunts was a total guessing game. That is exactly why they had to stalk their prey. Hajin questioned why this fishy smuggler was their main suspect. The answer: his signature firearms were literally plastered all over the latest ambush. High-tech gear was super rare nowadays, and the higher-ups would never permit such firepower. Clearly, those rebels smuggled that shiny artillery from the lawless wastelands outside the walls. The smuggler definitely imported those guns for the spider. With only one target left, capturing him meant game over for the boss. Naturally, she drafted our chaotic duo. They agreed, but Hammond shamelessly demanded a free pass for any future crimes. Even Hajin facepalmed at this sheer audacity while the doll flat-out rejected his ridiculous get-out-of-jail-free card. Hammond released a dramatically heavy sigh. Risking his neck for 0 perks, a boring desk job honestly sounded better. The doll twitched with pure annoyance. This cheeky brat knew exactly how vital he was. Reluctantly, she caved with a strict no-murdering civilians policy. She might turn a blind eye, but the guards definitely would not. Deal accepted. Their next stop was Hannam Bridge, a notorious lawless zone completely dodging the tower's radar. A filthy slum thrived in the shadows below. Our main character wanted to dip out of this dump immediately. Normal people avoided this dangerous wasteland like the plague, but it was the perfect black market for smuggler gossip. Suddenly, a wildly hog-tied stranger appeared, screaming absolute nonsense about beheading demons. Hammond just blinked at this crazy encounter. Out of nowhere, she snapped her ropes and charged right at our hero. With a heavy sigh, Hammond casually stepped aside, letting her face plant hilariously into the dirt. The local beast tamers were clearly slacking on crowd control. The crazy girl was totally shell-shocked by his flawless dodge. But wait, she had to know something. Tamers and smugglers were basically besties in the criminal underworld. He needed answers right now. Hammond smoothly threatened to summon the terrifying doll, the absolute worst nightmare for any tamer. Trembling in pure panic, she realized that anyone working for that monster definitely was not a spy. She cried that all the tamers had vanished. That shady fish kidnapped them last week for their ghost-evading survival skills. It was a toxic underworld partnership. Smugglers craved their unique abilities, while tamers desperately needed cash for their expensive magic amulets. But recently, the smugglers' demands skyrocketed into madness. Suddenly, the burnt-out adults just stopped coming home. The older tamers marched right up to his base to complain and vanished without a single trace, leaving this feral girl to defend their turf entirely solo. No wonder she tried her laughable intimidation tackle on him. Hammond rubbed his temples, frustrated over his lost leads. But the crazy girl flashed a scheming grin, offering an alliance. The target was laying low, but she held the perfect bait. They were officially teaming up to rescue her missing family. And where did Haru point her finger? Straight toward the chaotic, neon-drenched red light district. Hammond's jaw dropped at the sheer crowd density. This flashy neighborhood, once known as Itaewon, was literally right under the boss's nose. It was the ultimate blind spot. Meanwhile, Hammond groaned as Hajin kept buzzing endlessly through his comms earpiece. The doll brutally ordered them to zip it. Hammond nervously asked if her face blew their cover. She smirked, claiming enemies only feared the uniform, not her face. The real mission, catch the fish before he could sprint. Hulking bouncers locked eyes with them, and Hammond gulped down his fear. With trembling hands, they flashed the golden tickets. The guards rolled their eyes at these obvious scrubs. But since the passes checked out, the heavy doors finally swung open. Haru's luxury pass was legitimately real, which was incredibly suspicious. Over the radio, Hajin confirmed his position and asked for their feral guide. Hammond just shrugged, trusting her wild instincts. Inside, the club was packed with filthy, rich elites. The ruined world's bizarre ancient culture always confused our hero. Suddenly, the spotlight snapped on and a flashy host grabbed the microphone. He dramatically declared the city was completely doomed, loudly trashing the current incompetent ruler. The elites needed top-tier self-defense gear, and tonight's exclusive auction was the perfect solution. He hyped up a terrifying frostborn beast of absolute destruction. The curtains fell, revealing the demonic creature shackled on the main stage. Hammond nearly choked. The terrifying beast was just Haru. The doll quickly silenced his panic, promising the knights would strike momentarily. Haru played the ultimate bait to drag that elusive angelfish into the light. She orchestrated this entire crazy setup. Their only job was ambushing him. Haman finally connected the dots. This crazy girl literally turned herself into auction merchandise. Did she seriously think slapping a price tag on herself would magically summon their target? Absolutely reckless. Dark beasts were basically rogue spirits prowling the outskirts. Nasty monsters craving fresh souls to quench their unending thirst. Only elite tamers could control them. Selling a beast was completely unheard of. Now, some twisted tamer might just buy her. The crowd completely lost their minds over that fortune. Breaking a Constellation's contract meant paying a horrifying price. Hamon's sweat dropped, wondering how on earth she sneaked into this black market. Panic struck. What if some wealthy creep bought her first? It skyrocketed into the billions. The doll just scoffed. These absolute morons actually thought a wild beast could casually stroll through town. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. A shadowy figure emerged. The infamous angelfish finally arrived. The doll immediately signaled the knights. Hamon's jaw dropped. The arrogant bastard actually took the bait. Bam! He instantly dropped a ridiculous 8 million on Haru. The hammer fell, and staff directed the VIP winner to the back rooms. The doll smirked. Perfect timing. She and Haman would ambush him in the shadows. And wrap this up. They played it totally cool, acting like completely normal guests. They tailed their target until burly guards blocked their path. A few swift punches later, the guards were dreaming. But suddenly, boom. A massive explosion shattered the adjacent wall. Through the blinding smoke, Haru stood surrounded by possessed human puppets. The demonic beast had completely hijacked her body. Elite knights rushed the scene. One wrong move, and they'd all become mindless meat shields. Amon remembered Haru's grim words about the vanishing adults. She definitely knew the horrifying truth behind those missing people all along. That was her twisted logic. Offering herself at the underground auction was a guaranteed way to lure the angelfish. Blinded by pure vengeance, she literally threw her life away. Haman cursed her sheer stupidity. Why didn't that idiot try to survive instead? Weapons drawn, they clashed with the beastly horde. Meanwhile, the angelfish cackled maniacally. His prized doll had finally come to him. The doll frantically yelled at Haman, "Capture that lunatic right now, we absolutely cannot let him slip away." The villain just sneered. "A pathetic newbie thinks he can catch me." He aggressively taunted Mon to try his luck. Amon knew the grim reality. Ripping off that golden collar meant instant death. Once corrupted into a dark beast, there was no going back. They barely knew each other, but nobody deserved this horrific fate. Rage-blazing Haman swore to violently crush this bastard for Haru. He blindly charged the angelfish only to plummet straight into a hidden trap. This cursed dungeon just kept spiraling infinitely downward. Time for some reverse psychology. He purposely played into their hands. The twisted architect of this maze clearly wanted front-row seats to his suffering. Amon let out a mocking laugh. This supposed mastermind was cowering in the dark like a totally unbothered coward. He summoned Miori to the field. Her special ability would effortlessly expose every single dirty trick. Interestingly, the mysterious spider showed genuine interest in our hero, which proved this clown definitely wasn't the real boss. Miori gave a confident thumbs-up, target identity confirmed, but the angelfish just scowled, completely baffled why everyone obsessed over a mere newbie. His entire syndicate crumbled after that totally botched assassination gig, and why aggressively burn 8 billion on a girl, Haman demanded. The answer, cash is totally meaningless when survival is on the line. What about those innocent, hard-working tamers? Mon pressed the issue. They only partnered with shady smugglers just to put food on the table. Instead of funding pure evil, they just kept the dark beasts in check. The angelfish coldly declared that was their absolute last resort. With their beastly power, victory was practically guaranteed. But those naive fools had zero interest in staging a bloody rebellion. They only cared about their precious monsters, so he violently transformed the tamers into the very dark beasts they loved. He smugly told Haman to be grateful for the borrowed time. Suddenly, ominous magical chains shot out, completely binding our hero. Right before the fatal strike connected, a heroic shadow intervened. Hajin swaggered in, dramatically shouting for Haman to snap out of it. Flashing his special ocular skill he confidently bragged about, easily tracking this slippery fish down. Navigating lethal chains in pitch darkness was pure suicide. Haman fiercely yelled at Hajin to back off. This bastard was his personal prey. "Just chill a second," Hajin retorted, stepping forward. Click, he instantly triggered a glowing floor rune and got hilariously pinned by chains, a brilliantly hidden magic circuit. Still, turning this into a 2 versus 1 fight meant the clock was rapidly ticking for our smug villain. Enraged, he launched a devastating barrage of steel chains. He desperately wanted to slaughter these annoying lapdogs of the ruler. Amon gasped in pure horror. The guy was a literal monster. He had sacrificed both arms to a constellation, mutating into a terrifying incarnation. Amon blinked. Sacrificing his arms. This absolute lunatic had literally rented out his own body parts just to get a quick power-up. Bigger sacrifices meant nastier power. Our main character was genuinely stunned. This crazy bastard went that far. Turning civilians into mutants, human trafficking, and slicing himself up. This guy was a walking, talking garbage fire. The trash mob kept screeching for their deaths. Haman nudged Hajin. Couldn't he just spam time observation again? Way too risky. Without knowing which greedy constellation sponsored this clown, rushing in was suicide. They had to expose his cosmic sugar daddy to find a weakness. His sync rate with the mage hit 100%. The mage was mentally praying Haman would actually pick a useful memory for once. A flashback hit him from that epic mirror butterfly raid. The Platinum Monarch's voice had echoed in the mage's mind. Those magical memories had totally hard-carried their victory. Desperate for intel, Haman smashed the memory selection button. Instantly, our hero's consciousness was yeeted into another dimension. He spawned in a cosmic void, completely surrounded by glowing constellations and blinding stars. An eerie voice echoed. It was the exact same boss from the butterfly battle. It mocked their arrogance for sitting so high up. They had zero clue that the brightest stars suffered the most devastating burns when they crashed down. Suddenly, his mana circuits caught fire. He frantically scrubbed through the past to expose the angelfish's hidden constellation. Hajin suddenly screamed. This was absolutely not the time to be zoning out like a noob. Snap back to reality, Haman realized an attack was heading straight for his face. Time stretched, but only seconds had ticked by. System check. The constellation Black Apparition had dropped its cursed secondary weapon, dripping with pure demonic energy. The angelfish stuttered in pure panic. How did this punk figure that out? This legendary weapon was literally forged from the most brutal torture device imaginable. He traded his cheap arms to borrow the actual physical weapon, not just its aura. Did he become an incarnation just to hunt Yoon's guild? The mage shared this memory specifically to teach Mon how to completely obliterate a constellation. Target acquired Hajin cooked up a plan. He probably wanted to spam time observation, which was a terrible idea. Amon smirked and told them to step back. He was about to speedrun this boss in 1 second flat. Our main character kited the enemy, perfectly reading the boss's attack patterns. Channeling the mage's cheat tier knowledge, he executed the move. The angelfish was still human. There was zero chance he manually controlled every single chain. Hmon saw right through him. This coward wasn't risking his life. A true deathmatch would have earned him a constellation star and a massive level up. Absolutely mauling. The angelfish shrieked for him to just drop dead. There it was, a glaring weak spot right on his chest. Mon unleashed the Master of 10,000 Swords, scoring a brutal critical hit. Both the Martial King and Alchemist dropped their jaws at that insane big brain play. Watching him counter constellations with flawless mage strategies was mind-blowing. Mori muttered that the dude was absolutely built different. He constantly trash-talked her rebellion. Yet he solo studied how to literally fight the heavens, totally carrying this angelfish boss raid. Breaking free from the CC chains, Hajin sprinted over to check if Hammon had survived. Mon chuckled at his buddy's panic. Obviously, he was alive, but Hajin immediately went full tsundere, denying he cared. He was actually impressed by the angelfish. For a squishy mage class, the dude threw hands like a veteran knight. Literally, everyone noticed that detail except our clueless hero who was too busy throwing hands. Suddenly, Hajin pointed at a fresh bullet hole on the corpse's forehead. Did someone steal their kill before the explosion? A kill steal. This screamed of the Snake Nest Guild's signature style. Some anonymous assassin was definitely lurking around. This completely invisible sniper was incredibly sus. Then again, maybe a totally different player was framing the anonymous assassin to cover their own tracks. They quickly looted a mysterious ledger from the boss. It was a massive blackmail log tracking every poor soul's debts and exactly how they were being puppeted. These debtors were perfect pawns for a rebellion. The clues heavily pointed toward the spider, but their real identity remained a frustrating mystery. This clue was suspiciously spoon-fed to them. Haman absolutely hated tunnel vision. Staring at this bait meant missing a way bigger plot twist. Refusing the obvious bait, our hero kept looting and triggered a hidden discovery. Meanwhile, the knights were effortlessly farming the shadow beasts. Only Haru remained. The executioner doll stepped up for a brutal solo duel. She sadly apologized for this tragic betrayal, politely promising to bury Haru's remains. Suddenly, Haman crashed the scene, yelling for a timeout. He had just looted a golden collar. The murder doll slams the brakes just before a fatal strike. The original target was down, so all eyes locked onto Haru. The creepy puppet argues she went full monster mode, and there was absolutely no hitting the undo button. Han smirks. Was the doll just terrified this little troublemaker would wreck the whole neighborhood? The doll freezes. How the heck did this guy know the super secret Shadow Beast lore? Sure, everyone knew ghost possession equals instant monster transformation. But Han's deep dive into monster mechanics, that was definitely throwing up massive red flags. Logically, saving Haru was a lost cause. But plot twist. Unlike brainless beasts, our girl Haru actually sensed the danger coming. She was built different. The suspicious doll demands to know if some fancy constellation was whispering cheat codes to Han. Han confidently nods, totally leaning into his overpowered aura. The doll knew this guy wouldn't risk his neck for some random broke girl. Taking that as a massive compliment, Han grins. Intrigued by his audacity, the doll steps back to watch the show. Our main character politely thanks the murder doll and faces Haru. Mayuri flashes a thumbs up silently, promising to carry him if things go sideways. Han tags Mayuri in. She knew the back alleys so well, they practically thought she was the mastermind spider, especially with her beast taming hacks. Our hero inches toward the growling Haru, aiming to snap on that shiny gold collar. His genius strategy, slicing his own arm to freeze her in place, and not just a tiny scratch. Bleeding like a leaky faucet, Han starts chanting a crazy purification spell, practically begging the chaotic girl to snap out of it. She hadn't even slapped the corrupt adults yet. Dying now would be totally uncool. Haru viciously growls as the magic kicks in. Her sanity slowly returns, though she still looked totally ready to obliterate all of humanity. Han sighs in massive relief. She actually kicked the ghost out. Even the cynical doll's jaw practically dropped to the floor. This was literally a first in the tower's entire history. The peanut gallery watched in absolute shock as the monster became a cranky teen again. Haru kept screaming about total annihilation while Han awkwardly tried hushing her. But hey, the doll could not deny the possession was broken. Actually, she just bullied the inner ghost into submission. Now she was walking around as a super rare, half-human, half-shadow hybrid. Honestly, the doll was not thrilled about leaving a ticking time bomb roaming the streets. Spare her, and she rots in a cell forever, which totally sucks. So Han negotiates begging for a chance to babysit the angry hybrid himself. That screamed illegal, and the doll wasn't buying it. So Han casually suggests bending the rules, throwing his shiny IOU card right in her face. She scoffs. Why on earth was he sweating bullets for some violently chaotic stray kid? Han argues Haru gambled her life for the city, making it a fair trade. Despite the obvious danger, the doll suddenly lacked a good excuse to say no. Honoring her promise, she finally agreed, leaving Han absolutely thrilled. He knew this creepy puppet was actually a lady of her word. In return, she vows to keep the government off Haru's back. The catch: if Haru bites anyone under Han's watch, the doll promises to refund her precious shiny star. Plus, she would happily dish out extreme punishment. Han accurately translated that as, "Control your weird pet or I chop your head off." She basically told him to take full responsibility for his dangerous new stray. Han confidently agreed. Honestly, Haru gave off major spicy cat energy. Meanwhile, the alchemist sweats nervously, pointing out that shadow beasts literally never turn back into humans. Mayuri smirks, asking if he actually understood the tragic backstory of beast tamers. The king assumed it was for overpowered battle pets or finding cheat codes to figure out why the world ended. Classic royal overthinking tamers were way simpler. Most were just ordinary folks desperately clinging to a tiny shred of hope in this apocalypse. Some became massive nerds, hoarding ancient artifacts to preserve lost human cultures. Others just wanted their dead relatives back. They became tamers simply to hang out with loved ones who had unfortunately respawned as terrifying ghosts. These tamers firmly believed taming spooky monsters could magically turn them human again. Except hugging monsters usually ends in a gruesome death screen. The alchemist points at Haru, and Mayuri proudly declares she was a total glitch in the Matrix. Haru wasn't just some genius animal trainer. She evolved into a super smart monster without even getting body snatched. She literally got possessed and casually walked it off like a minor cold. Turns out Haru was the legendary master who taught Mayuri everything. When Mayuri famously crushed the shiny platinum monarch, Haru was her absolute MVP support. The mage interrupts, calling Haru the ultimate secret weapon for the Heaven Rebellion. Mayuri just shrugs, wondering why they were suddenly changing the subject. Han needed a solid alibi to infiltrate the monarch's ranks anyway, and Haru was vital. Teaming up with Yoon wouldn't mess up the timeline. The epic rebellion was already dropping. The true final boss was the tower itself, meaning they absolutely needed a star-swallowing monster on their squad. Oh, and the missing tamers. Safely chilling in the basement, perfectly alive and completely human. Cleared by the Night Order, they finally dragged themselves home. But surprise Haru was chilling in their room, and Hajin absolutely despised this chaotic setup. Hajin spat out a half-baked apology. He had zero other options, and honestly, he wasn't even slightly ashamed. His sanity was hanging by a thread. Now he had to play babysitter, clean up her messes, and actually feed her. Our main character groaned. He was basically treating a human girl like a stray puppy. Suddenly, a dark memory struck him. That creepy doll had warned him. The beast was leashed for now, but it still slumbered deep inside Haru. Raising Haru like a pet sounded easy, but the maintenance was a total nightmare. Suddenly, an errand boy interrupted his crisis. Geomuk was demanding their presence immediately. Outside, the massive tower itself seemed to be violently warping. Meanwhile, Yoon wrapped up her little project with a dangerously smug smile. The warm-up was over. It was finally time for the grand finale. They sprinted outside to witness the tower's absolute meltdown. Haru trailed right behind them, casually mumbling the most terrifying things imaginable. Amidst the utter panic, two mysterious men blocked Hajin's path. They had an urgent message that absolutely couldn't wait. Hajin recognized the guy instantly. It was the ruler's secretary. Escorted inside, he found the legendary workshop masters hovering around a massive table. Yun sat gracefully at the center. Her precious hunters had arrived perfectly on cue, just as she had explicitly demanded. Hajin's survival instinct screamed. Something catastrophically bad was brewing. With all the heavy hitters present, the ruler officially kicked off the tense meeting. Hanwi, the academy head, noted the circuit master was missing. Yun smirked totally unbothered and casually summoned the deputy master 10 Fingers instead. Poor 10 Fingers stuttered nervously, bowing deeply as she promised to somehow fill those impossibly huge shoes. Geomuk angrily demanded to know what Yun had been doing. This was no time for tower games, but Yun brushed off his fiery temper effortlessly. That exact crisis was why she summoned everyone here. Yun ordered the chief astronomer to drop the bombshell. Sweating, he revealed that the star constellations had completely shifted positions without any warning. Due to this cosmic glitch, all their hard-earned tower floor data was now totally worthless trash. Hanwi freaked out over their wasted blood and sweat. Ignoring his panic, Yoon immediately demanded a status report on their conquered fortresses. The 10th floor stronghold barely survived, but communication was completely dead from the 20th floor all the way down to the 2nd. Basically, every base they owned was wrecked or wiped off the map, the room gasped. This disaster was absolutely unprecedented in tower history. Yoon sharply turned to the Tombstone Library director. Did his legendary prophecies predict this total mess? The director violently shook his head. Nobody could foresee this chaos. They were flying blind without a single solution against an impossible history-breaking catastrophe. Geomuk scoffed. Why would climbing the tower suddenly be a nightmare now when they hadn't faced any real trials before? Yoon smirked. Sure, an overpowered constellation like Geomuk might find it a breeze, but their gold was entirely gone and nasty betrayal rumors were poisoning the city. The citizens were losing their minds. Absolute unity was their only survival option. Yoon boldly bet even stubborn Geomuk would agree. Geomuk let out a massive defeated sigh. He was cornered. Shockingly, Yoon announced a total pardon for any past actions that went against her. Every single resident had to unite their power to blitz through the tower immediately. Every single resource would fuel this insane mission. To prove her absolute authority, Yoon brought a special little gift for the traitors. She casually tossed a bloody sack onto the table. The room erupted in horrified screams. The missing circuit master's severed head was literally rolling right there. Yoon flashed a chilling smile. Let's call him the ex-circuit master now. With that savage introduction, poor Ten Fingers officially became the new circuit boss. Hajin recognized that dead guy instantly. He was an arrogant old geezer who always glared at Yoon with absolute malice. With the haters literally eliminated, Yoon sweetly asked for the alchemy master's opinion. Hanwi sighed. His alchemists were loyal lapdogs before, and they wouldn't dare rebel now. Still, the ruler couldn't guarantee Hanwi wouldn't suffer brutal losses by taking her side. Obsessed with expanding his market, Hanwi blindly promised total obedience. But Geomuk, the furious weapons master, wasn't having it. Was she really going to burn the city's treasury for this madness? Yoon's eyes burned with absolute madness. She boldly declared she would gamble her very soul to achieve victory. Geomuk fired back a savage roast. You can't bet a soul when you clearly don't even have one. Despite the brutal trash talk, they were backed into a corner. The workshop begrudgingly pledged its loyalty. Smirking, the ruler graciously accepted their forced cooperation. Hanwi silently scoffed. The library division had zero resources to offer, just sitting there as totally useless background characters. Securing the workshop's total obedience was the ultimate jackpot. It basically meant every single citizen was now completely shackled to the monarch's crazy will. With absolute authority, Yoon casually dropped a chilling command. Now, go exterminate the remaining rats. But plot twist, the secretary had slipped Hajin a secret hit list from the ruler. Without a single warning, our protagonist dramatically drew his weapon and started slaughtering the executives right there. Hanwi surprisingly joined the bloodbath, slaughtering several people himself. The remaining masters shrieked in absolute terror, completely clueless about this unhinged massacre. Zero explanations were given as the traitors' severed heads bounced hilariously across the fancy meeting table. So Yoon coldly declared the absolute garbage had finally been taken out. Good riddance. Time to finally conquer that cursed tower. But honestly, the tower's twisted distortions sparked absolute world-ending panic across the entire city. Naturally, some 2-bit thugs decided to riot. Their brilliant logic: if the world is doomed, go crazy. The doll quickly rallied her squad to protect the innocent. Those punks scattered, terrified of being caught alive. Suddenly, a scout dropped a massive bombshell. The terrifying Platinum Monarch returned. He brutally slaughtered every traitor, and now every guildmaster bowed down. The doll's jaw dropped at Yoon's insane mid-apocalypse flex. Boom, martial law declared. Every single resource was forcefully shoved directly into the tower. Even the doll was completely blindsided. Dozens of executives were wiped out, and 10 Fingers miraculously snagged the boss position. Out of nowhere, a burly squad told the doll to just step back. They offered to smash the bandits while she played medic. Meanwhile, the city descended into hilarious pandemonium, trying to restore order. Miraculously, rival workshops actually teamed up. Peace was creeping back into the streets. 10 minutes ago, they whined about the monarch bankrupting them. Talk about a crazy mood swing. With rebel bosses literally deleted, Yoon's fan club was too terrifyingly massive to challenge. Amidst this total madness, she forcefully made everyone scrub the tower. Who even needs a civilian army after that? Plot twist. The doll realized she was just a disposable pawn in Yun's massive game. After 48 agonizing hours, the tower's tantrum stopped. Meanwhile, the monarch casually hijacked the city using the workshop masters. Juicy gossip claimed the spider got squashed. Then the monarch smugly dropped a brand new law like an absolute boss. From this exact second, every single shiny resource would be exclusively dumped into clearing the tower. Everyone 19 and older was forcibly awakened. Got a pulse. You're a hunter, and you officially belong to the ruler. Homan was totally dumbfounded. What kind of tyrannical nonsense was this? people would definitely riot. Hajin awkwardly scratched his head, completely clueless. Plus, the 20th floor fortress had completely ghosted them. The masses were terrified, so the ruler cleverly weaponized their raging hatred against the tower. A deliciously evil way to get free labor. Homan rubbed his chin. Was it just dumb luck? The tower glitched when the rebellion exploded? Out of left field, Haru casually muttered she wasn't hungry. Our main character's stomach was totally silent too. He yelled at Hajin to grab grub, secretly judging those meatheads for eating like bottomless pits. Miori watched the monarch's crazy flexes while the mage teased her about getting sentimental. No regrets here, she stands by her dramatic choices. The snarky mage raised an eyebrow. Honestly, didn't it look like the monarch was literally begging for death? Yun was totally unhinged. She would gladly sacrifice her own grandmother to clear this stupid tower. That is exactly why she used Miori as a meat shield. The old monarch he knew wasn't this pathetic. She was a hardcore survivor. Miori shrugged, basically saying humans are weirdly irrational. So Mr. Mage had zero right to judge her epic rebellion. She was totally calling him out on those illegal cheat code memories he dumped into Homan's brain. Hilariously, the mage had no clue what spicy spoilers he gave the kid. Accidentally leaking endgame strategies is a massive oopsie. Was this sneaky guy planning a solo boss raid against the heavens all along? Talk about ego? Miori totally saw through him. He tried playing pacifist, but when those shiny constellations ruined everything, he decided to delete them. The mage burst out laughing. Sure, he was a magical genius, but soloing literal gods was way above his pay grade. Miori instantly smelled the cap. The mage sweated, completely baffled by her insanely accurate lie detector skills. His power level was astronomically thicker. With those massive stats, he easily could have speedrun straight up the tower. With the monarch backing his play, he had a VIP pass. So how did this overpowered nerd fumble the bag and get Isekai Ed here? Blustered the mage, told her to stop being so nosy, but she ruthlessly pressed on. Did he clear the game? He deflected, calling her questions stupid, letting Miori draw her own wildly dramatic conclusions. Regardless of past lore, the current Homan was such a noob he couldn't even cast basic light. The kid was impressively dense. The mage sighed. If that idiot accidentally buffed his light magic, he would probably nuke the whole tower by mistake. Miori smirked, convinced she could fix this total dummy. The mage remained utterly skeptical. Zero combat skills, sure, but her built-in lie detector would perfectly train Homan's potato brain. Meanwhile, Yun dramatically kicked down the 20th floor doors for the stuck hunters. With the epic rescue mission, everyone instantly locked their eyes back onto the tower. I am not a tyrant, she claimed unconvincingly. Meanwhile, the monarch deployed heavy troops right outside the armory just before the doomed traitors bit the dust. H-Mon expected a brutal combat deployment. Instead, he received yet another hilariously cheesy love letter. The celestial constellation sponsored this chaotic choice. Suddenly, Homon swore Miori just smashed that like button. Was his mind playing ridiculous tricks on him? Homon finally intercepted Yun Hope. I did not keep you waiting, she teased. Her true agenda, discussing their absolutely insane rebellion against the very heavens. As promised, Yun was finally ready to spill all the epic tea. Mon gulped. Time to choose, join this suicidal crusade or fight it. The ultimate nerve-wracking decision.